All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Twitch Film Table Reads. My name is Allison Parker, formerly known as Smish Smosh, and I will be your host today. And today we are reading a script called Alice, written by Ted Wilkes, based on Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. So I'm really looking forward to today's read, and let's just get right to it. I'm going to join our table readers. Hey, guys. Oh, I'm on mute with them. Hang on. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey.
Not too
Hey,
bad.
hey.
Pretty good.
Hey.
Ahoy!
Hey.
Ahoy! Cool. Alex, you with us?
Oh, yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, let's do it. Take it away, Alex, whenever you're ready.
Alice, written by Ted Wilkes, based on Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Alice, how long is forever? Rabbit, sometimes just 1 second. Lewis Carroll. Interior, kitchen in a Chinese restaurant, Wonderland. Night. It's the kitchen of a Chinese restaurant, because that's where chases always take place. However, there's something off about this one. The workers aren't all human. A toad washes pots by the sink and a cat is cutting onions in the corner. We're in Wonderland, the place where Lewis Carroll's novella was set. However, it's years after the hallucinations of Alice Liddell which gave birth to that narrative. Turns out that the place is actually a sprawling noir metropolis with a Victorian twist when you put the book down. A perp 40s races through, knocking stuff over in the hope that it'll slow his pursuer down. Rabbit, white, late 20s. He doesn't do that usual hero thing of trying to avoid the stuff in his way. Smash! He's straight over the top of the sous chef, like a running back heading for the line. Rabbit's a little over 6 feet, has the nose and ears of an animal, but the body of a man. His fur is dirty, covered in grime and matted together. He'll tell you that too. He's got a voice like gravel in a mixing bowl.
They always run. They know that it's pointless. I always get them. It's just something to do with the nervous system. You see a threat coming your way, and your feet start turning in the direction of the nearest exit.
Crash! The perp is out of the back door and into a dark alley at night. Chiaroscuro lighting fills the alley as two shadows run up the wall, just about visible through the thick fog circling around the place.
It's the amanglia, the place where your emotion gets all its... the place where our brain gets all its emotional signals from. Once it kicks in, it just takes over, and no matter what you were thinking about, you're not in control anymore. Autopilot. Get the fuck out of there.
At the back of the alley, there's a chain-link fence. The perp clatters against it, then tries to climb as fast as he can. He barely gets halfway up before Rabbit leaps up and grabs the back of his pants, yanking him down to the floor. Crunch. Real nasty. Something's obviously broken. The perp doesn't dwell on it though and tries to jump up. Too late. Rabbit is on top of him, wrestling his arms together and trying to get some ancient-looking cuffs on his wrist.
I don't really care what they've done. Wonderland is full of creeps who do crazy shit. A few get caught in the net who've done nothing, but that's not my issue now. You can't deal with the real scum of this world from behind a desk. I treat the station like a piggy bank these days. Deposit a bad guy and withdraw the cash. Do I miss?
I know where she is.
Rabbit stops dead in his tracks. He blinks. Pardon?
What did you say?
You're the one they keep talking about, hung up on that girl. What's her name?
A wry smile from the perp.
Ah.
I'll have a vial, please. Rabbit tees off on the perp's face. Good night, scumbag. Interior, Wonderland Police Station. Night. It's busy. Detectives are booking in criminals left and right and center. Streetlight spills through the slatted blinds, scoring everything in long bands of white. Rabbit sits in front of a desk in the middle of the bullpen. Looking down, he flexes his hands. They're bruised and covered in dry blood. He moves a rolled-up cigarette from behind his ear and pushes it between his lips before striking a match. Letting the vapor fill his lungs for a moment, he then exhales, creating plumes of smoke which rise up his nose, an Irish waterfall. Rounding the corner, Harry Mad Hatter Harrington, 40s, spies Rabbit at his desk. His hair is thinning, his paunches spreading wider, and the bags around his eyes are heavy and dark. In his hands are more folders to add to the clutter on his workspace.
You can't do that here anymore, White.
Rabbit looks for an ashtray.
Where's the ashtray then?
Moving around to his side of the desk, Hatter exhales.
Like I said, can't do it here anymore. Why the heck will we need ashtrays?
Noticing the china teapot next to the typewriter, Rabbit takes one last drag from depositing what's left of his smoke.
Just like you can't go giving pups complimentary dental work.
One of the manila folders is opened in front of Rabbit. In the middle of the page is the perp's mugshot, quite the Picasso.
If the guy was a murderer or a kitty fiddler, then I could brush this under the carpet. But the warrant was for vagrancy. The DA seized this file.
It's never getting that far, Hatter.
You have no idea what it's like here now you've left. Not that you did any paperwork when you were here anyway. I've got people breathing down my neck with targets and points. They say they're cleaning up the place, but it feels like an excuse to start thinning the herd. Help me out here, White.
It's almost like he's ashamed to say it.
He was going to say her name.
Jesus, Henry Christ, White, not this again. We worked that case and you saw the same evidence as me. She went home just like the others when she got bored of this place. It's what dreamers like her do.
She would have come and said goodbye.
Really? The way she whopped her noodle like that? I'm surprised she remembered her own name, let alone yours. It was just some little trip in Fantasyland to her. You've got to let it go.
Rabbit pushes his hand around his chin and heels sharply.
Money.
Listen, White, I didn't mean it like that.
Just give me the money, you alcoholic piece of shit!
The whole place goes quiet. Reaching into the drawer to his right, Hatter rummages through the empty miniatures. He pulls out a brown coin purse and tosses it across the table. Picking it up, Rabbit feels the weight of the bag in his hand. The station slowly returns to normal.
It's light. The warrant was for 60 guilders.
You're joking, right?
Do I look like the kind of guy who is 5 minutes prepared for an open mic slot?
I had to take 40 to keep him quiet.
Rabbit pockets the money and slides his chair back, keen to make a getaway.
It's for your own good, White.
Snaking his way through the other desks, chairs, perps, and cops, Rabbit is only focused on getting out that door. Before he's outside, he pops another cigarette in his mouth, lights it, and exhales.
Sir, excuse me, sir, you can't do that in here anymore.
The plea falls on deaf ears. Rabbit is already somewhere else. He reaches into his waistcoat and pulls out a Baroque pocket watch. Its ticking becomes louder and louder, drowning out the hustle and bustle of the station. Off-screen, trumpets build, a big band playing in a seedy, smoke-filled club somewhere.
The amygdala is also the part of the brain that makes sure you keep hold of the important memories. Or rather, the ones that it feels are important.
It's joined by a siren song, a tempting melody charged with sexual energy and danger. Interior, the Lucky Cat, night. At the back of the room, there's a big band playing to an audience full of gents who are chain-smoking and drinking heavily.
We're arrogant enough to believe that we're in control of our bodies. But one wrong message to that part of our head and we're on a downward spiral, trying to shut it up. We're not actually the ones driving anything. We're just along for the ride.
Front and center of the club is Rabbit, woozy with intoxication, and there, up on the stage, wrapped in the spotlight, is Cheshire, early 30s. The slit of her red dress goes so high up her body it nearly meets the one exposing her cleavage. It's hardly worth having it on. She winks at the right time, smiles when she needs to, blows the odd kiss. It's her eyes, though, big and blue. You could get lost in them forever. Everyone in the crowd is bound around her little finger.
Dames like Cheshire should have a health warning, the same as drink and smokes. We all know they kill us slowly, but we keep coming back to them in the hope that they'll help us forget the person we are and make us feel like the person we want to be. No small task when you've got a lot of forgetting you want to do.
Advancing over to Rabbit's table, she singles him out. She sings the racy part of the song just for him. Coyly lifting her leg up, she climbs over his table and onto his lap, feline in her movements.
She finds a way through.
She leans in for the kiss. Rabbit reciprocates.
Sometimes.
Sliding off him, she tries the same thing with another purse sap. She knows exactly what she's doing. Interior, the Lucky Cat later that night. The club is full of chatter and a musical interlude. Cheshire is propped up at the bar, fixing her makeup while sipping on a clear drink from a tall crystal glass. Heading over to her, Rabbit is a little worse for wear. Turning to him, Cheshire smiles and gives him a hug and a kiss on the cheek. She purrs excitedly.
How you been, Bunny?
Good, Cheshire.
She snaps back around and continues to attend to her face.
Well, you can tell that to your reflection, because it seems he hasn't heard the news.
Long day.
Is that right?
Do you want to get out of here?
Looking at him, Cheshire takes all of his face in. Glancing down, she notices the bruising on his knuckles. Her smile fades slightly. The act gets dropped for a moment. Reaching out, she tenderly pushes the hair from his face, then stops herself. She puts the act back on.
But the night is still young, darling. I can't be going anywhere whilst the club is still open.
What if I waited?
I don't think that's a good idea tonight, honey.
Tomorrow?
Leaning in, Cheshire's voice changes, now much more serious, almost dangerous.
Listen, I'm telling you this before I have security come move you on. The longer we stay here talking, the less likely one of these gents are going to take me home. So find someplace else to be.
She's right. In the corner, there are several well-heeled gents who have noticed that Cheshire seems to be talking to a disheveled stranger and are gossiping amongst themselves.
I need you tonight.
I can see.
Rabbit finishes his drink and then slams the glass down onto the bar before heading towards the exit.
Don't blame yourself. It's nothing you did wrong. I'm a magpie. I need shiny things in my nest.
Fuck dames. I know something that's certain to get you where you need to be.
Exterior, Absalom's opium house. Later that night. Smash, smash, smash.
It'll make lost memories real again.
Rabbit pounds his fists on the large wooden door outside. There's a sign just above it with Chinese lettering and a large dragon snaking around the symbols. Absalom's opium house. There's no answer. Back to hammering on the door, rain streams out of the sky, forming vast oceans of puddles on the ground. A shutter slides across the peephole. Two impossibly large eyes fill the gap. They recognize Rabbit stood there, sodden and drunk.
Open the door, you fucking insect!
The shutter is closed. There's the fiddling of locks and the turning of keys as the door opens. Rabbit steps inside. Absalom's opium den. The ceiling is so low that Rabbit has to stoop to navigate the place. You can always taste the sickly sweetness of opium in the air.
It's odd when you chase things for a living. When you finally catch what you were after, you feel cold. Like it wasn't supposed to end so soon.
Crawling around the back of the small counter opposite the door is Absalom. Yep, he's a caterpillar. Arms and legs and everywhere, and those big old bug eyes watching everything. Rabbit follows him to the counter and looks into the den part of the establishment.
You want to let it go again, just so you can have the high of the chase. You panic because you worry if this might be the last time you have to run. It's scary to think that from now on you'll just be walking everywhere. Or worse yet, waiting.
Lined up side by side in a row across separate wooden beds are three teenage dreamers, 17-ish. They're all impossibly beautiful, their eyes dart left to right under closed eyelids, summoning up visions in their slumber. Rabbit turns back to Absalom, who is in the process of rolling up a ball of syrupy black tar.
Topping up their dreams for them?
They got lost on the way to the garden, so I made one of them here in the hope that they'd remember how to get home.
Do you wonder where they came from?
It's not my place to worry about that. Just so long as they head back with all the limbs they brought with them, I couldn't care less.
Why do they stay? This place is just one long nightmare.
Probably the same reason that you do.
Pardon?
They've got something to run from.
Slam! The goods are ready and deposited on the counter. An ornate pipe is found from a shelf underneath and slid along beside it. Rabbit moves to take them off the counter. Absalom pulls them away from Rabbit and unfurls 3 of his hands on the left side and points at the palms of them with 3 fingers and 3 different hands from the right. Fine. Fishing into his jacket pocket, Rabbit takes out a coin purse. There's 1 guilder left in it. He tosses the bag onto the counter and snatches his purchase from under Absalom's grip. Absalom stops him.
Go easy, Rabbit. Maybe some things are best forgotten tonight.
Rabbit shrugs him off and then stumbles his way into the den and finds a vacant wooden bed opposite the 3 dreamers and deposits himself on it. Looking up at them, he watches as one of their feet twitches slightly. He wipes his nose with the back of his hand, then settles himself down and begins to pack his pipe.
When the noise in your head gets too much, you drown the amygdala in dopamine.
He lights up, closes his eyes, inhales, holds it.
Let it know that you're going to be taking back control.
And lets it out. Rabbit opens his eyes. His pupils are impossibly large and black. He grins a wide smile. The pipe drops to the floor. His body goes limp. It hits him hard. His smile grows wider still. It's just what he wanted. Closing his eyes, he's off somewhere else in a meadow, mourning in a dream sequence, a vast open space of the most wonderful colors. It seems to stretch on forever. Everything's not quite right, though. It's just a little bit off. Dutch. A manicured hand grazed the top of the tall grass. The owner of the limb is clad in that famous blue dress. Rabbit wakes up in the middle of the field and looks up. He takes in the view rolling clouds, the sapphire sky, the singing birds. For a moment, complete contentment. Laughter. Turning his head, he sees her. She looks back and smiles. It's her. Alice Little, 18. She's right out of the pages of the book. She's got the flowing blonde hair with the bow in, the heart-shaped face, and those buckled shoes. However, it's the eyes you find first. Kind, determined, adventurous. She's smitten. So is Rabbit. Jumping up, he bounds after her as she runs off into the distance. He's a little wobbly on his feet, though, and he stumbles and falls. It makes her giggle.
Keep up. We're going to be late.
Getting to his knees, Rabbit glances up and sees where Alice is heading. It's a dark forest filled with gnarled trees. An overcast magenta sky bears down behind it.
Alice, no, wait, stop. Don't go in there.
Too late. She's parting the branches and disappearing into the shadows. Rabbit tears off after her and darts into a dark forest. Rabbit sprints through the branches. They clawed him, trying to hold him back, determined to stop him making his way through the forest. He shrugs them off, trying to keep going.
Come on, Rabbit. You don't want to be late. We're going home.
The branches don't stop, twisting their way around his arms and legs, hooking into his skin. He fights back, but it's useless. They're beginning to envelop him, starting to cover his eyes and mouth. They puncture his skin. He screams in pain. Looking around frantically, Rabbit tries to find Alice. There! She's ducking down and looking into the rabbit hole, sizing it up to see if she can fit in. She thinks she'll fit, so she's on her hands and knees, crawling down into the darkness.
Alice! Alice, stop!
Rabbit's mouth is taken over by branches that gag him, trying to push themselves down his throat. He won't give up, though. He screams, finding some strength deep within himself, and tears away from the grip of the branches. They've left some horrific wounds on his body, though. Long gashes on his face, arms, and legs. Without a second thought, he charges after Alice. The branches snake their way after him. He's too quick, though, and manages to slide his way down the rabbit hole. In the rabbit hole, it's a struggle for Rabbit to fit in such small space, but he crawls on his hands and knees into the blackness. Finally, he gets to a point where he can't see and fires up his lighter. The flame struggles to illuminate anything.
Alice? Alice, where are you?
Nothing. The darkness stares back, refusing to give anything up. Rabbit drops his head. He's panting with exhaustion as he tries to wriggle further down the tunnel. He looks defeated. He can go no further than a scream, blood-curdling, panic, terrified, the kind that you can only summon up if you're truly in danger.
I'm coming, Alice! Hold on. Try and hold on!
The wall is getting closer and closer as Rabbit crawls further into the darkness. Tighter, tighter, tighter. That's it. Rabbit can't go any further. He's trapped.
Come find me, Rabbit. Find me.
Rabbit scrambles in the dark, scraping his fingers against the walls, trying to get purchase. He kicks out with his feet, hoping that he can push himself through.
You have to find me, Rabbit.
More struggling, scraping, pushing, straining.
Find me.
One last huge effort from Rabbit.
I'm trying!
It's no use. Rabbit admits defeat.
I'm trying to.
He breaks down, crying those tears which only a broken man is able to muster up when he knows this is the end of the road for him. Interior, Rabbit's bed sit, morning. Bang, bang, bang. Rabbit stirs from his substance-induced slumber. His shirt is off. He definitely still lifts. Huge traps, thick arms, cut abs. Heading over to the door, Rabbit opens it slightly, but keeps the chain on. Scattered across the room are various empty and half-empty bottles of booze, the paraphernalia to take drugs with, and a wall full of police evidence from past cases haphazardly pinned up. Standing in the doorway is a young copper, late teens. He looks like a mouse in his 3 sizes too large uniform.
You got a warrant?
No, sir.
Rabbit moves to shut the door. The young copper stops him.
Atta sent me, Mr. White. Says you're going to want to hear this.
Rabbit stays at the door, making sure he's blocking the view into the bedsit.
There's been a murder. Atta says you'll get 10 minutes before he calls it in, and then the Blues will be trampling all over the evidence and the butcher will take the body. She's over on Canal Street, propped up on a wall on the back of the estate.
It's not my game anymore. He knows that. Tell him he'll have to solve it himself.
He tries to shut the door again.
He says you'll want a look. Says it's one just like she was. Spitting an image of her too.
Looks could kill. Rabbit is giving one right now.
It's just what he said, Mr. White. He said you'd be angry and that I was to run if you gave me that look.
Sensible advice.
The copper legs it down the corridor. Slam! Rabbit closes the door and looks back into his room. He heads over to the bedside dresser and mixes up a terrifying cocktail from all the vials he's had there. Before drinking it, he adds 2 drops of laudanum from a pipette dropper and stirs the mixture together. Down the hatch it goes. Leaning against the dresser, Rabbit inhales and exhales sharply. It's quite the way to wake up. Feeling the effects of the drink, he smooths his hair back. He's trying not to look. He can't help it. His eyes move to the back wall of the place. On it is a tapestry of police evidence tacked up with that red string connecting things that are important or relevant together. Every so often, there's a newspaper clipping of a frightening headline about a missing dreamer. Frankly, it's a mess. That he'd be able to make sense of it. The leads that have run cold are scribbled out or have large question marks next to them. Right in the middle of it all is a picture of the girl from Rabbit's dreams. Alice Little.
God damn it.
He heads to gather his crumpled shirt off the floor. As he sweeps it up, he notices something underneath it, a black envelope with gold trim around it. Curious.
All the work you put into keeping things quiet in your head, and it wears off the second you open your eyes to the world. You have to let your mind take over again. You can't let yourself be stupid enough to think it's not going to put up a fight.
Picking it off the floor, he opens it up and prizes a card out. Again, it's black with gold trim. It simply says, "Don't be late." Down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a picture of a mask. Rabbit turns the card over in his hand. Nothing else, just those 3 words in the picture in the bottom right. Exterior, side street, Canal Street, morning. Hatter wasn't wrong. It's not the spitting image of Alice, but the girl could easily be your sister. Just like the copper said, she's propped up against the wall. She almost looks peaceful in death. All around is a sprawling Victorian estate, not the nice country house kind. It's dirty and confined with narrow cobbled streets that are full of the unwashed. Rabbit is there examining the body, being careful not to touch it. Glancing down at her wrists, he sees that there are some abrasions across them. It's obvious that she was tied up at some point. Rifling through his pockets, Rabbit pulls out 2 large copper coins. Taking a moment, he looks at them, then looks at the girl whilst rubbing them together. He places them in her hand and carefully closes her stiff fingers around them.
Well, if it isn't former Detective White. I distinctly remember the last time I saw you. You were handing me your badge and revolver while using some very colourful language that I shan't repeat.
Turning around, Rabbit sees D.A. Samantha Hart, 40s, in the middle of the small street, sucking what little atmosphere there is in the tiny passage right out. She's in the sharpest red suit, her favourite one. Mean is written into the very lines of her face. Either side of her are some tough-looking coppers, her personal detail.
I always thought your little coin fixation was strange, constantly pushing them into the hands of all the bodies you find.
Just trying to get them back home. If they can't pay, the boatman won't take them.
Hart lets out a laugh, mocking Rabbit.
So full of it, Rabbit. I bet the dreamers you meet lap it up.
A flicker of anger from Rabbit.
Why are you here? Surely this is a case for the beat.
The papers get interested when there's the body of a dreamer. I can see it. It doesn't happen all that often, and they make for great headlines. Another dreamer doesn't make it home.
And you're here to make sure they quote you in the piece?
I'm here to offer a wealth of knowledge to my fantastic officers on what I thought would be a difficult case for them.
Eyes narrow. Rabbit doesn't believe a word of it.
But I suppose that we might as well call this now, seeing as all the evidence is coming together so nicely.
Still looking for ways to lock up innocent people, Chief Hart?
Occam's razor, the most obvious solution is usually the right one, and that's D.A. Hart to you.
Rabbit performs a trite curtsy.
Do excuse me, Your Majesty.
It doesn't faze Hart.
So indulge me. Why are you here?
Lighting up a cigarette, Rabbit looks to the two mountains of men on either side of her. There are easily three of Rabbit than the rest. One of them cracks his neck, the other unsheaths a heavy truncheon from his belt and taps it thrice on an open palm. This has got setup written all over it. Damn you, Hatter.
Is this a formal questioning? If so, I want a lawyer.
Only guilty people need lawyers, Rabbit. You surely know that.
I was out for a morning stroll when I came across her.
Ditching the cigarette, he begins to roll up his sleeves. It's pretty obvious what's coming.
You're sticking with that.
It's the truth.
The clanging of a police bell builds. The cavalry are here. There's no more time to work out how you can make an escape. Maybe if...
Get him.
2 minutes. The goons in uniform set about Rabbit and give him one hell of a beating. Exterior, Canal Street. Continuous. An old police wagon drawn by 2 muscular horses rounds the corner at an impressive speed. People scatter out of the way. It comes to an abrupt halt just before the side street. Others join. There's a whole unit to come to get involved with the incident. A metal step unfurls down to the street level as the door swings open. Several coppers dive out and run into the side streets where the brawl is still going on. It's actually got worse. Rabbit is giving as good as he gets, trading punches and blocking the odd blow with his forearm. He even manages to bite one of his attackers and plant a flush headbutt right into the other's nose. Rabbit's a street fighter, not a gentleman pugilist. The pair of them are too big, though, and with the other coppers from the wagon, Rabbit is soon overwhelmed. Even after they've managed to get the cuffs on him, he still keeps struggling. Hart comes right into his field of view, nose to nose with Rabbit. His face is already swelling. There's a cut above his eye that really needs some medical attention.
Rabbit White, you are under arrest for murder in the 1st degree. You have the right to remain silent.
Rabbit isn't listening. Someone else comes and stands behind her who takes up all his attention. Hatter. Those who are restraining Rabbit really have to use all their force to hold him still.
How could you do this to me? We were partners. I'm going to break every bone in your fucking body, one by one.
He knows the rest.
She motions to one of her large grunts, the one who has his nose spread across his face, courtesy of Rabbit's forehead.
And then I'm going to...
Wow! Truncheon right across the back of the head. Cut to black. Inside Rabbit's head space, it's empty. Just a void of perfect black.
7 bottles of beer on the wall. That's a long time to be staring at the back of your eyelids. Sure, it's happened before. It's an occupational hazard in my line of work. I never get much past 63, though. Then someone...
Exterior pathway under a bridge, the docks, day. Splash! An unconscious rabbit is brought out of his enforced slumber. He's groggy and sore, but the second he opens his eyes, he's immediately back to being in that same rage. There, stood in front of him, is Hatter, holding a pail. Rabbit gets himself off the floor, no small task with him still being handcuffed, and charges towards Hatter.
Rabbit, please stop.
Rabbit's not listening. He tries to tackle Hatter, but misses, landing face first on the floor just before the canal the bridge stretches over.
Why did you do it, Hatter?
I know what it looks like, but I didn't do anything.
Rabbit gets himself up on his knees.
Bullshit!
I had no idea that she was going to be there, Rabbit.
Rabbit is standing up now, trying to focus on Hatter. It's still a bit of a struggle to see.
Why tell me about the body, then?
Hatter rambles. He's nervous.
I thought it was strange you coming in yesterday with that perp spouting off about Alice, and then this dreamer waking up dead on Canal Street. I thought there might be a connection. Maybe you got something else out of him when you apprehended him. Plus, you know more about them than anybody. You've been able to see things that other people would have missed. Maybe solved it yourself. I don't know. I was desperate. Do you know how bad dreamers die in my precinct, Lux?
You believe me now, then?
I'm not saying that, Rabbit. I'll admit that this looks similar, but we've got a body this time. Actual physical evidence of a crime. It's not a crazy conspiracy to say that this one didn't make it home.
Rabbit nods. It's a start.
You glean anything from the scene?
A little calmer now, Rabbit is able to be slightly more rational.
She had some bruising on her wrists. Suggests that she might have been tied up elsewhere and then brought there after she died. I didn't get long before Hart found me.
It's a start.
Did you think that he could have done it?
Who?
The vagrant from last night?
No, of course not.
You're sure?
He was just a junkie who'd pickled his brain. He'd probably heard some gossip on the streets about you asking around town about her, and thought that he'd wind you up. Plus, he was only released this morning after I got in touch with you.
Now what then?
Hatter's hands go to his hips. He exhales.
I can fob them off for 48 hours, say he took off in another direction, and after that...
Advancing over, Hatter pulls a small bunch of keys out of his pocket and begins unlocking Rabbit's cuffs.
You'll be our only suspect.
You mean you're not going to be working the case back at the station?
This isn't the Old West, Rabbit. I have a boss. She obviously wants this one solved quick, and she found you at the crime scene. Your face is the only thing that the whole WPD is going to be seeing until they capture or kill you. Give them something else to look at, and you might.
Hatter trails off. Rabbit has locked eyes directly with him. It's another one of those looks that could kill.
You fucking idiot!
He advances on Hatter, fists clenched into weapons. Hatter cowers until he can go no further, huddled against the brickwork of the bridge, hoping that it might absorb him.
No one forced you to come. You wanted this. Well, not this, but you wanted this case. Else you wouldn't have bothered. Back in the day, you would have walked, no, crawled, through miles of broken glass just to see the files. Now you get to be the sole detective working it.
Silence.
I'm sorry, Rabbit, I really am, but I don't know what else to say.
It's all about to boil over. Then Rabbit notices something just behind Hatter. There's a black and gold poster pasted to the wall. Around the edge is that familiar ornate trim. Right in the middle of it, there's that mask. That identical instruction is in bold at the bottom too. Don't be late. Rabbit turns Hatter around to face the wall, shoving his head right next to the poster.
What is this?
A poster? Oh, well, I don't know. What are you getting at? Please don't hurt me.
No, what is the poster for?
It's the Knaves Ball, a big party that the Well-to-Do in Wonderland have every year. It's really secretive, invite only, always problems. We think that the Duchess might be behind it, and never been able to prove it, though.
The Duchess?
How many other ones do you know? The Duchess, the criminal enterprise throughout Wonderland. Why are you so interested?
I woke up this morning with a card in my pocket which looked just like this.
That's impossible. There's no way that they invite someone like you to it.
Rabbit lets go of Hatter. He spins around to face him.
Do you know where it's held?
Sure, because if they want to invite you, I'm certain to be higher up the list.
What about when it is?
They've cancelled all our leave in 2 days' time. Someone must know something. So I'd put money on it being then.
All right. Find out if that vagrant I brought in the other day has a fixed address. Might be worth checking out.
Are you mad? I can't risk that. They'll be on to me.
I think it's the least you could do to help me out.
Hatter sighs.
Fine.
Cracking his neck, Rabbit begins to flex his knuckles and wrists. Opposite him, Hatter psychs himself up. He bounces on the spot and wheels. He then slaps himself hard in both cheeks for good measure.
Make it look convincing.
That's not going to be a problem.
Hatter winces. Exterior pathway under a bridge, the docks. Later that day. Hatter is face down at the water's edge. He looks like he's been in one hell of a fight. Rabbit walks away from the scene. Brushing his hands down his waistcoat, he finds his pocket watch and flicks it open. The glass face has, unsurprisingly, been smashed, but it still works. Tick, tick, tick. It's starting to slow down now, though. Close to breaking.
People talk about Father Time. Like Time is this benevolent old man who can't help what he does.
The ticking slows down some more. Tick, tick.
Time slowly crushes us. It makes us march to the beat that it chooses. An irregular, constant drone of noise, which is a struggle to keep pace with.
Even slower now. Tick, tick.
It squeezes the life out of our body and mind, then leaves us as a husk to rot away in the ground. Time isn't benevolent. It's unforgiving and cruel.
Finally, the ticking stops.
Especially when you don't have any.
Interior corridor, Rabbit's bed sit late afternoon. Coming down the corridor, Rabbit heads towards his door. Sat on the floor right beside his room is Cheshire, smoking a cigarette. Butts are scattered around her. It's obvious that she's been there for quite some time. The small slip she's wearing screams, "I'm in the wrong neighborhood," and her bare feet suggest she didn't plan on being here. As Rabbit approaches, she looks up. There's a real shiner on her right eye.
How you been, Bunny?
She stands up and gives him a peck in the cheek. Both of them ignore the state of the other's face. Reaching past her, Rabbit opens up his room and steps in. Cheshire, rather sheepishly, walks at the door frame, leaning against it. Meanwhile, inside the room, Rabbit sits down in the bed and rummages between his feet. Eventually, he finds what he's looking for, the medical kit. Pulling it up onto the bed, he rifles through the contents, eventually pulling out a needle and thread. Coming into the room, Cheshire closes the door behind her. She then sits next to Rabbit, takes the needle from him, and then threads it up. They're now both in Rabbit's bed sit. Rabbit takes a large bottle of some murky liquid off the side and has a mouthful. He hands it over to Cheshire. She takes a modest pull on it too, and splashes some in the open wound above Rabbit's eye. Ready to begin the procedure, Cheshire starts stitching the cut closed. There's silence as Cheshire continues her work. She must have done this before. Rabbit sparks up a smoke.
It's a good thing I came by. You're sloppy when you have to do it on your own. It leaves such terrible scars on your face.
Finished with the stitching, she ties the thread off and snips it at the end with some scissors from the box. It's a perfect job. Cheshire thinks for a moment. She kisses Rabbit just above the cut. Taking the smoke from his hand, she helps herself to a drag. Standing up, Rabbit looks around the room for a change of clothes.
I have to go and see the Duchess.
Cheshire isn't paying attention. She's looking at the picture of Alice in the middle of the wall. She cocks her head to the side, examining every detail of the girl's face.
You really loved her, didn't you?
Rabbit doesn't respond. He continues with the search through his room for a change of outfit.
I can see why.
Finished with the cigarette, Cheshire puts it out on the floor, his bright red lipstick smudged across the end of the filter.
What would you say to her if you got to see her again?
She gets up and advances over to Rabbit, pressing herself against him, kissing his bare chest.
I made her a promise. Something I couldn't do.
Moving her lips up Rabbit's body, she begins to bite at his neck.
I can be her, you know. I don't mind. We can do the things the two of you used to.
It's hard for Rabbit not to be into it. He moans a little. Cheshire's breathing quickens. She undoes his belt and begins to hold him in her hand.
I need to go to the club.
Cheshire quickens the rhythm of her strokes.
It won't be open for another few hours. We have plenty of time.
Slipping the dress off her shoulders, Cheshire lets it fall down to her ankles, exposing her entire body to Rabbit. She slides back in the bed, beckoning Rabbit to come to her. Rabbit clambers into the bed and pushes himself inside her. She moans. Her back arches up and her head contorts against the bare mattress. It's passionate, visceral, animalistic sex.
Say her name.
Rabbit doesn't stop, but he stays quiet. Cheshire doesn't like that and throws a closed fist right at the eye she just stitched up, and immediately splits again, exploding with crimson. She wraps her legs high up his back and grabs Rabbit's hair, yanking on it forcefully.
Say it!
Rabbit doesn't break eye contact. He grits his teeth.
Alice. Alice!
Cheshire loves it. She arches her back further so that Rabbit can go deeper. Just before she's going to climax, she reaches up and hangs off Rabbit's neck, pulling herself up so their foreheads touch.
You'll never find her.
This only spurs Rabbit on. Cheshire lies back and enjoys every minute of it. She knows exactly what she's doing. Interior, Rabbit's bed sit later that night. Rabbit lies in bed, staring at the ceiling, smoking a cigarette. Its amber glow is the only light that breaks through the darkness of the room. Next to him, Cheshire is sound asleep with her back to him. The bed is a mess. It's covered in sweat, blood from Rabbit's eye, and other stuff.
The problem when you have time is you wonder what you're going to do with it. It's in our nature as a species to be planners, but we only ever plan for things to go right.
He finishes the smoke and gets himself dressed.
You prepare for the bad things that are superficial, but never the stuff you actually need a plan for. Like when your world stops spinning and you have to start it up again.
He pours the rest of whatever was in a bottle he finds on the floor down his throat.
When you take time out of the equation, suddenly you don't need to plan and you're prepared for anything. As whatever you do that moment was the right decision, because there wasn't another one you'd considered.
Finally, he pulls on a heavy-looking trench coat from the back of the door and bends down to get something unseen from under the bed. With everything ready, he heads out of the door as quietly as he can. As the door shuts, Cheshire's eyes spring open. They're sad, almost lonely. She sits up to look around the room. Her eyes finally land on the indent in the bed the Rabbit has left. Moving over to it, she brings his pillow as close as she can to her and tries to bury herself into the mattress. A single tear falls onto her cheek. She quickly wipes it away. Exterior, Canal Street. With another cigarette pushed between his lips, Rabbit walks through a busy cobbled street full of nighttime revelers. He whistles something. It's supposed to be soulful, but in this case, it's got menace behind it. Think Irma Thomas.
There's going to be violence tonight. It's unavoidable.
There isn't a person out in the street who isn't engaged in something that they shouldn't be. Drinking, fighting, fucking, sometimes all three at once.
It's this itch in the back of the mind. The signal that lets me know there is no way that this evening ends well. It's not a problem that it's there. It's that it won't go away.
He opens up his jacket and takes out a heavy-looking sawed-off shotgun. Cracking the weapon, he checks there are 2 cartridges in there.
Until I fired the first shot.
Reaching into his pocket, he pulls out another 2 cartridges. That's all he's got.
Not enough to break down the door, but plenty to make sure that they can hear me knocking.
He snaps the weapon shut. Exterior alley outside Lucky Cat. The doorman, a monstrous-looking bull, spies Rabbit some distance away from the club and already has the rope across the entrance, unhooked to let him in. Rabbit tosses his smoke into the distance and heads towards him. Spreading his arms wide, Rabbit prepares himself to be searched. The doorman pats him down. Nothing. What's this? He finds the shotgun. Wham! He doesn't get time to react. Rabbit brings the doorman's head down quickly and delivers a huge knee to his face. He then lands a swift punch to the jaw. The doorman's body goes limp, just for good measure. He hides the shotgun again and heads inside. Inside the Lucky Cat, it's the same place as last night. The same clientele in the same suits, drinking the same drinks. However, it's now a far less classy affair. White powders hoovered off reflective surfaces, lovers dribbling at each other in the middle of the dance floor, and a huge amount of consumption. Ignoring it all, Rabbit heads to the back. He's attracted to the attention of some of the other staff who snake their way towards him. They can't navigate the club quite like Rabbit can, though he's moving in double time now, obviously keen to get away. Arriving at a door past the stage, Rabbit wrenches it open and darts into the back rooms of the Lucky Cat, where tiny winding corridors stretch on for miles in each direction. Every so often there's a stack of beer barrels or a heavy-looking door which leads to God knows where. Rabbit looks around. Where to go? The staff from the club have burst through the door and they're armed. One fires a shot. It just misses Rabbit. Rabbit pulls out of his shotgun and returns fire. The shell hits one goon square in the chest, pinning him to the back wall in an explosion of dark ruby blood. The second shell goes wide, but Rabbit's intent has been made clear. Those who are still standing scatter for cover. Rabbit heads down further into the corridors. Snap! Rabbit splits the chamber, sending 2 smoking cartridges flying out. He quickly loads the other 2. Just in time, one goon with a powerful-looking rifle appears. He brings the weapon up to aim, but Rabbit is quicker. Crack! The shell shaves off the top part of the guy's head, his body crashing to the floor. Rounding in the corner, Rabbit meets more resistance from the other goons. Rabbit brings up the gun up to fire, but before he is able to pull the trigger, one of the goons manages to grab hold of the barrel. The pair wrestle over the weapon. The goon is winning, overpowering Rabbit and pointing the business end of the piece towards his face. He just needs to get hold of the trigger, and that's it. Curtains for Rabbit. Crack! The weapon discharges into the air, missing Rabbit by millimeters. Everything's ringing in Rabbit's ears. All the other sounds in the place seem distant. Rabbit gives the guy whose fault this is a wallop of a backhander, sending him to the floor. Ring! There's no time to dwell on it, though. Another goon is coming at him with a flick knife, slashing wildly at the air. Rabbit waits for him to overextend, then grabs him by the wrist and twists his arm at an odd angle. The guy yelps in pain. Rabbit isn't done, though. He pushes the limb sharply upwards into the air. Snap! Compound fracture, followed by a scream. Another charges at Rabbit, pushing him into the wall before slamming him onto the ground. The pair wrestle, neither winning or losing, trading blow after blow. Rabbit is eventually able to get his finger hooked into the guy's mouth. He pushes hard into the side of his cheek, breaking through flesh and tearing it right off the face. Wham! He delivers one hell of a hammer fist right into the guy's nose, knocking him out. Crack! Right in Rabbit's shoulder blade. The bullet seals right through his skin, followed by a shower of claret. He hits the deck. Goons rush over. One points his revolver right at Rabbit's forehead. He pulls the hammer back. Click! Underneath him, Rabbit laughs, almost a cackle.
Go on then! What are you waiting for?
He's about to pull the trigger.
Enough.
Everyone stops immediately. At the end of the corridor is Tweedledee, 25. He's an imposing figure, as wide as the place and nearly as tall. Every inch of his skin is covered in tattoos, face, eyes, and ears. Truly a thing of nightmares.
The Duchess wishes to see our guest.
Interior, the Duchess's office, the Lucky Cat. There's wood everywhere on the walls, the height, backs of the chairs, and of course, the centerpiece of the broom, the impressive oak desk. Behind it sits the Duchess, early 50s, playing solitaire, marbles, not cards. Now this one's tricky. No one really knows what gender the Duchess likes to refer to themselves as. Androgynous would be the best way to put it. Today, though, the Duchess is wearing a long blonde wig, heavy makeup, and a tight governess's blouse. Looking around the room, there are various busts of Roman generals and empires, all of them defaced. Bits hacked off or shapes chiseled in make up an odd hairpiece. In the corner, a gramophone plays a slow melody with the occasional crackling of the record. Bang! Robert is draped in through the doors by Tweedledee and another burly-looking chap. He fights them every step of the way, but my word are they strong. They dump him on his knees in front of the Duchess's desk. The Duchess doesn't appear all that interested, simply moving a marble off the board and then rolling it around to join the others that have been used up during the game into the gutter. Tweedledee takes the needle off the record player and moves around to take up the position of the right-hand man. He puts the sawed off on the table.
It's rather naughty to be playing with firecrackers in the house, Mr. White.
Rabbit spits blood on the carpet.
Now, I can only imagine that this little song and dance you've put on this evening is to get my attention. So here I am. What can I do for you?
Rabbit is swaying on his knees.
The girl.
Oh, for goodness sakes, man, speak up.
Nothing from Rabbit. He's really struggling. The Duchess turns to Tweedledee.
What did you do to him? Is this any way to treat the loyal patrons of this fine and reputable establishment, especially ones with such a prestigious career serving the city with selflessness and honor?
Laughter. Everyone's in on the joke except Rabbit.
I know you have the girl.
The singer? I can assure you, Mr. White, that was nothing to do with me, despite what she may say.
Alice. Where is Alice?
Who?
Alice Little, the first dreamer.
And I would know that. How?
The Knave's Ball. I know you run it. I know you have something to do with the Dreamers.
Of course you do. Most people who have half an ear to the ground do. Even the smart coppers do. But in being smart, they know not to interfere with my work.
I know. No. I'll find her there.
I will never understand men like you. You have everything laid at your feet, yet you chase what you cannot have and run from the things that you know will be good for you. Usually right into the arms of the last thing you were trying to escape. That woman you have, who is more than likely in your bed right now, could be a good one with a little discipline. I bet she is dynamite between the sheets. It's such a shame I've never had the predisposition myself.
With that, two goons grab Rabbit from behind and lift him off his feet before dragging him closer to the table. As Rabbit tries to fight back, one of them slips his thumb inside the bullet wound on his shoulder. It's a white-hot pain. Apologies. Once they're at the table, they pin Rabbit's right hand down to the wood. Rabbit struggles but can't get away.
Shh, shh. Calm now. Calm.
Why send me the invitation then?
I assure you, Mr. White, that a man of your stature has never and will never be invited to my party.
There's a grin from ear to ear on the Duchess's face.
Right. So it's my understanding that Turning up to someone's home without a gift is the height of rudeness.
The Duchess stands up and produces a hammer and chisel from the desk drawers before waving them around for all to see.
No, I know that you don't want to offend me. So I'm going to be taking something I like the look of in lieu of chastising you for your hideously forgetful nature.
Lining the chisel up on the join between Rabbit's little finger and knuckle on his right hand, the Duchess takes aim with the hammer. Rabbit tries to wrench his arm out of the way, but he can't.
Who knows? It might bring me more luck than you.
The Duchess goes to take the first swing of the hammer.
Tell me where she is.
If you were listening, Mr. White, you would understand that I don't know. And as you might be able to guess, in my current frame of mind, even if I did, I wouldn't tell you.
Silence. Rabbit finally admits defeat. He sinks his head into his shoulder.
Why don't you just kill me?
Kill you? Why would I do that? You'd be dead. And I think that's something that you're secretly longing for, but are too much of a pussy to do yourself. No, Mr. White, I can find, and soon will find, far more effective ways to hurt you than simply destroying your body.
Rabbit looks right at the Duchess. Hatred seeps out of his very pores.
Right.
With that, wham! The Duchess brings the hammer down on top of the chisel. It's Rabbit's face, though, screaming in pain, crying for help, trying to pull away. That's quite enough. Rabbit is muted. The real Irma Thomas plays over the top of everything. That must really hurt. Exterior, an upmarket neighborhood, the nicer end of town at night. Detective Larkspur, 30s, stands smoking in the middle of the street, looking at something up in the air above him. He can't take his eyes off it. Around the place, there is a crowd forming with some officers who are trying to take control. Hatter ducks under the police rope and stumbles his way over to the stand by Larkspur's side. He follows the man's eye line. Good lord. A hip flask appears from inside Hatter's coat. He takes a long pull from it before pocketing it away from view.
You got another one of those?
Larkspur immediately passes over his pack of smokes to Hatter. Neither of their eyes moves from whatever it is up there. Hatter lights up and takes in a lungful.
You seen stuff like this before?
Another lungful for Hatter. He shakes his head.
No. Similar, but not like this.
You think that it's linked to the Canal Street case?
A bigger lungful for Hatter this time.
Probably.
They say that it's White who's doing this. Sick fuck.
Hatter sucks the smoke right down to his fingers.
We'll see.
You don't have to defend him, you know. I get that he used to be your partner, but the guy was always a psychopath waiting to happen.
Finished with his cigarette, Hatter drops it under his foot before stamping it out.
Maybe.
There's an intense number of flashes behind him, and a chorus of shouting from the assembled journalists.
D.A. Hart. D.A. Hart.
Didn't we have any capable detectives on duty tonight?
Hatter turns around. There she is, D.A. Hart, her usual detail in tow behind her. Larkspur sees this as a great excuse to disappear.
We have secured the scene, ma'am, and are canvassing for witnesses.
Very good, detective. But if you'd had a stronger chin, we'd have had a suspect in custody and this wouldn't have happened now, would it?
She's looking up now, too. Hatter grits his teeth.
No, ma'am, it wouldn't.
Are you any closer to apprehending Mr. White?
Not yet, ma'am. It seems he's been bouncing around a lot since he left the force. Never anywhere for more than a month or so. NFA on his official file.
That's odd, because my boys have an address. They discovered a very informative harlot who told them everything they needed to know once her memory was sufficiently jogged.
Hatter stares at the floor, hoping that it might swallow him up.
I expect the premises to be searched early in this morning. I'm sure he's going to want a long rest after his activities this evening.
Her eyes flick up again.
Yes, ma'am.
Advancing over to Hatter, D.A. Hart has that controlled anger in her eyes that she does so scarily well. She grabs Hatter by the goods and leans in real close.
And if I find out that there was more than your incompetence involved in letting him get away, there's this cell in the county jail. The last 3 people I put in there were eaten by their bunkmate. He took his time, too. It was well over 5 days before he finished the last one.
Her grip tightens.
Started with his feet first, and then moved on to other things.
Tighter.
Understand?
Hatter does. He nods.
Yes, ma'am.
She lets him go, giving him a gentle tap for good measure.
I expect a full confession by tomorrow afternoon.
With that, she turns on her heel and leaves. As she does that, the crime scene is revealed in all its glory. Up on a gas lamp post, there's a dead dreamer hung upside down. It's a violent work of art in various shades of red. A truly hideous sight. Hatter runs his fingers around his face and takes in a large breath. He's fixated on something specific, though. The ruby red lipstick the girl strapped the lamppost has on.
They never wear lipstick.
There's another flash of a camera that brings him out of his thought. He turns to the assembled officers that are darting around the place.
For fuck's sake, cut it down from there.
Interior, Rabbit's bed sit night. Rabbit darts into the place, shutting the door behind him and leaning against it, breathing heavily. Cheshire sits up as he comes in. Her doe eyes are full of concern.
Bunny, what's wrong?
He's grasping at his right hand under his jacket. Everything's stained in crimson. Racing over to the sink, he turns the faucet up fully in panic. He then gingerly takes his hand out. They cut off his pinky finger. He jams the wound under the running water. Stifling a scream, Rabbit keeps it under the stream. The sink fills with watered-down claret.
The itch is gone now, but it's replaced with something else. There is this dull ache after violence, which lets you know that you've been through it and come out the other side.
With the water still running, he pulls his hand back and wrestles the top half of his clothes off. There it is, quite an impressive entry wound. Looking into the mirror, he examines the hole. Cheshire arrives behind him and tenderly strokes his arms and shoulders before kissing him in the middle of his back. She holds him tightly from behind.
What did they do to you, Bunny?
Not now.
He glances to the side of the sink and picks up a small knife, psychs himself up.
Did the Duchess tell you where to find her?
She kisses him again, on the shoulder this time.
I said not now.
Rabbit plunges the blade into the cavity. It's a difficult task with only 4 digits on his right hand, but he carries on. His face twists into pain. With wild, excited eyes, Cheshire watches him in the mirror, drinking in the moment, willing him on to push it in deeper. Finally, he prizes the bullet out from inside him. It drops into the porcelain, pulling his shirt off the floor. He wraps his damaged hand in the white fabric. The blood from his hand seeps into the fibers, which quickly stains it pink. Leaning on the sink, he exhales quickly.
You'll never find her.
Rabbit snaps. He turns around in a rage, cutting the knife through the air. There's no one there. He looks at the bed and sees that he is alone the moment he stepped into the room.
She got herself under my skin. She knew that she could do that to me. She'd known about the itch and what she could do to make it worse. Make me need to scratch at it. She knew exactly what she was doing. She thought that she was sending me to do her business tonight.
Returning to the sink, Rabbit takes a good long look at himself in the mirror.
But the truth is that you can't tell a man to do something that he doesn't want to. Not even she could do that.
Rabbit is now seething. focused entirely on his own reflection.
My father once said that to be a true man, you had to finish each day and be able to look at yourself in the mirror.
Smash! He throws his fist at the glass in front of him, leaving 100 distorted reflections of himself. He continues to stare.
What the fuck did he know?
One last look, then Rabbit tears himself away from the mirror and heads to grab another half-drunk bottle of filthy liquid from the floor. He then slumps down into the easy chair at the front of his bed and takes a long pull from the container in his hand, finishing what is left of it. Once it's done with, he drops it on the floor, laying his head back. He closes his eyes. Exterior, narrow alley, Canal Street, night. A young rabbit is waiting with his hand open for a dealer to give him something. Boy, does he look young. He must be on his first patrol. His uniform hangs off his wiry frame, and if you look closely, you can see the green behind his ears. A standard issue police whistle hangs around his neck. The package is exchanged. Rabbit then checks the contents before pocketing it and moving on. The dealer tries to stop him by grabbing his arms.
You want to pay for that, buddy?
Rabbit shrugs him off.
You want to go to jail?
The dealer spits on the floor and retreats into the shadows. Rabbit heads out of the alley into the Canal Street. Rounding the corner out of the alley, Rabbit finds the street deserted. He places his hands in his pockets and begins whistling a familiar tune to himself. No menace this time. Within a few steps, his whistling slows down as he notices something. There's a girl walking across one of the high walls that separates the slum gardens as if it were a tightrope. It's Alice. Rabbit's hands come out of his pockets as he darts over.
Hey, you! Get down from there!
Alice isn't paying the slightest bit of attention and carries on what she was doing.
Impossible.
Nothing's impossible. Get down from there now.
That's not true. I can think of 6 impossible things before breakfast.
You need to get down off that wall now. Otherwise, I'll arrest you for a breach of the peace.
You can't arrest me. You're not a police officer.
I am.
Well, why did you rob that man in the alley?
I didn't rob him.
You took something from him without paying. That makes you a robber.
I was taking things off him that he shouldn't have.
Then you were dishonest in your intentions, which still means you can't be a police officer. Just because there are bad men in the world shouldn't mean that those who are supposed to be good need to stoop to their level.
It's childish, but it somehow speaks to Rabbit. He shuffles his feet and looks at the floor. He can't dwell on it for long, though. Slip Alice loses her footing, forcing her to look down at the floor. Her eyes shoot open wide, panicked.
Why am I so large? It must have been the tonic. The tonic made me like this. I won't fit, and I'll make such a terrible mess at the party like this.
Something flashes through her mind, something that she has forgotten.
The party. The cakes. The cakes! I've forgotten about the cakes! The cream will cut off my head!
She laughs like someone only who is off their nut can. Gripping her stomach, she overbalances and falls backwards out of view. Rabbit sets off straight away into the slum garden exterior, Canal Street. Rabbit counts the view and sees Alice slumped in the bushes. She's not moving. There's a milky white fragment poking out of her leg. She's broken it. Racing over to her, Rabbit kneels by her side, her eyes flutter open. She looks right at Rabbit.
Is this the garden?
No, just a garden.
Now she's searching in his eyes, noticing something strange.
It's curious, pretending to be 2 people at once. Isn't it?
She reaches for his face.
That's just the fall. We need to get you to the infirmary.
She comes to. Whatever was in her system is fading away. Immediately, she feels the pain in her leg and begins to blubber, finally breaking out into tears.
I don't like it here. I should have never come.
Where did you come from?
She thinks through her streaming eyes.
I can't. I can't quite remember.
This brings on a barrage of tears.
Hey, don't cry. It's okay. I can take you to the station and we can...
You are not to take me there.
Okay, but I have to report this.
Rabbit goes to put his police whistle in his mouth.
Please, don't.
He sighs. Rabbit thinks. He then lets the whistle drop out of his mouth and hang around his neck.
Then where shall we go?
Anywhere. Anywhere. Please. I just want to go home.
Interior Rabbit's bed sit early morning. Rabbit jerks awake. He immediately feels the effects of everything that happened last night. Looking down to his hand, it's still hidden in his shirt, which is now covered in dry blood. He slowly unwraps it like a morbid present.
Hatter helped us that night. We patched her up and she soon got better.
What's left of Rabbit's hand is a horrific sight. He looks past the missing finger and flexes the other ones that are left.
It took 3 months before we were staring at her photo pinned to a corkboard.
He glances to the door and sees that there's been a note pushed under it. Getting up out of his chair, he heads over to pick it up.
It's strange what love can do to a man.
After looking at the note for no more than a second, he quickly pockets it. Outside Rabbit's bed sit, multiple police wagons screech to a halt. As soon as their wagons have stopped spinning, officers pour out of them. As soon as their wheels have stopped spinning, officers pour out of them armed to the teeth. The last one out is Hatter, who places his top hat on his head.
It can make him question the very nature of who he thinks he is.
Interior Rabbit's bed sit. Rabbit is now at the mirror. He has patched himself up properly this time, more bandaged than man. He gingerly places a revolver in his bad hand, which is now swaddled in white. Pointing it into the reflective surface, it's a struggle to pull the trigger. But he can still do it. Dropping the weapon back down, he opens the chamber and loads it with a single bullet before snapping it shut.
Force him to look at the thousand fractured versions of himself.
He glances at the various faces in front of him in the mirror. In the corridor outside Rabbit's bed sit, coppers flood the space, lining up on either side of the wall next to Rabbit's door. They look nervous. It's as if they're ready for one hell of a fight.
Or make him certain that the path he's on is the right one.
One copper is ushered in front of the door with a large battering ram in his hands. The key to the city. Inside Rabbit's bed sit, Rabbit is now fixing himself to head outside. Pulling on his large trench coat, there's a noise outside. He looks to the door. Inside the corridor, crash, the door flies open as the key is placed in the lock. Officers flood into the room with their weapons drawn, making a cacophony of noise.
Police, hands in the air. Please, get down.
No shots fired. Last in is Hatter. He looks around the room. No one's here. He looks at the back wall. Shit. Inside Rabbit's bed sit, no police this time, just Rabbit. He makes one last check that he has the note in his pocket before striding out the door and shutting it behind him. Inside Rabbit's bed sit, Hatter is still staring at the back wall. All he can do is stand aghast. Right in front of him is all the evidence the Rabbit has been gathering. Everything about every dreamer that was ever murdered. Ever. A wall of self-incrimination. Back to Hatter wearing that same face.
It allows him to uncover a truth that he thought he knew, but has finally been told.
Looking down at the floor, Hatter notices something under his feet. Taking a handkerchief out of his pocket, he reaches down and carefully moves everything else out of the way before picking it up. It's a cigarette with lipstick all around the filter. He looks at it and exhales.
No one touch anything. This is a crime scene. I want photos of everything, and then you can take all that down and bring it to the station.
Wrapping the cigarette butt up in his handkerchief, Hatter then slips it inside his coat pocket before heading out of the door. Exterior outside 33, Daresbury Drive, day. Rabbit doesn't belong in this part of town. All around him are well-heeled ladies and gents arm in arm, taking the air. As two of them pass Rabbit, the gentleman moves the lady away from this menacing thug and hurries along. It's also really quiet, something which is making Rabbit edgy. He's on the footpath in front of a large townhouse, 33 Daresbury Drive. There's a lovely Georgian front to it. However, it's not been taken care of. Heavy curtains block the windows. Rabbit looks down at the scrap of paper in his hands. Scrawled on a note is the same address, 33 Daresbury Drive. Rabbit pockets the piece of paper, then heads up to the front door. Knocks. He waits. The door opens a crack. The house is impossibly dark, but Rabbit can tell. It's him. The perp. He's a name now, though. Dr. Charles Lutwidge, in 40s. There's nothing to him. He's all skin and bones. His fingers that are gripping hold of the door are those of a pianist, though his nails are yellow and brittle. He recognizes Rabbit straight away and tries to slam the door shut, but Rabbit's foot is in the way, though, stopping it closing. In the hallway, it's a lovely house, cluttered with hoardings of newspapers, books, and strange medicinal artifacts, but lovely. Charles puts up a good fight trying to close the door, but Rabbit is determined and forces his way inside. Hoping to slow Rabbit down, Charles tips the umbrella stand next to the door over. Rabbit falls over it. The man on his feet bolts over for the phone at the other end of the hallway. He picks up the receiver and begins spinning the mechanized dial round. 9. Rabbit picks up back again, begins menacing over. 9. He's nearly there. Charles turns to face the wall and closes his eyes. 9. Rabbit looms over Charles, but he's managed to connect the call.
Please send help.
That's all he gets out before Rabbit pushes him to the floor and rips the phone from the wall. Wham! Charles's world goes dark. Cut to black. In the front room, Charles is sat upright in a wooden chair with a green leather back, tied up with the cable from the phone. His head lolls to the side, still unconscious. Opposite him, Rabbit leafs through a coffee table full of heavy scientific journals with one hand. He has his revolver in the other. A grandfather clock ticks loudly in the corner. The thick curtains barely let the light in, but around the room there are pictures and paintings of bizarre medical curiosities. The clock chimes with a splutter. Charles wakes up. Rabbit immediately trains his weapon at the man. Charles is groggy but strangely articulate. A different man from the one Rabbit first met. His eyes are clear now, focused.
Violent men never usually live as long as you. The Norsemen knew that and encouraged those who have your predilection towards bloodshed.
Rabbit is only half listening. He heads over to the window to look outside, parting the curtains only a crack.
They told them if they died upon their shields, they would be rewarded for it by feasting with the gods in the great hall.
Do you believe that?
As a man of science, I can neither prove nor disprove it, so I must remain open to the idea, but quietly skeptical.
Done with looking at an empty street, Rabbit turns back inside.
Why aren't the police here yet? In a neighborhood like this?
I call them often. The visions often come as frightening nightmares to me.
Rabbit seats himself back in the chair opposite Charles.
The warrant for vagrancy.
He searches the room. There on the wall is a certificate from University College London. It's for a doctorate in medicine awarded to Dr. C. Lutwidge.
Dr. Lutwidge?
Charles sighs. There's a weight in his shoulders which causes him to hunch double as he speaks.
When I dream, I often find that I forget who I am. I run for miles and can't find my way back. But you know how that is.
I do.
Come now, you must realize I can see the signs. The sunken cheeks and hollow eyes, the slight twitch of the median nerve. What is it that you want to run from?
Why don't you tell me first?
He points his revolver right at Charles's head. Charles just laughs.
Now that is a good question.
Rabbit pulls the hammer of his pistol back. Click.
Alice Little. Where is she?
Ah, the second of the dreamers. I do remember her.
The second?
She followed her father here, grief-stricken that he left her.
Who is that?
I think it might be better if I showed you.
Interior study. Rabbit prods the revolver into Charles's back, ushering him through the open door to the study. It's another gloomy room full of strange oddities. This one seems to have a large collection of formaldehyde jars with strange acquisitions floating in on the back wall. The furthest wall from the door is bare, though. The only thing there is a single small picture in a simple frame. It's impossible to see what it's of, though. Rabbit hides his weapon away and approaches it, leaving Charles at the door. He still can't see, though. He goes closer. It becomes clearer. Closer. It's of a man stood up and a girl sat down. Finally, he's within touching distance. It's all clear now. It's Alice, sat posing for a portrait, smiling as only she can. Behind her, with the stethoscope hanging off his neck, is Charles, with a serious Victorian line across his face.
My wife and I adopted her when she was only a baby. Her mother was a patient of mine who died in childbirth, and her biological father had long since vanished. We never altered her surname because we wanted her to still have a connection to the woman who brought her into the world. But she was very much our daughter.
You can't help it. Rabbit lets the tears fall down his face.
When I first arrived, I met a man. He was worried that if more dreamers came here, they would need assistance, and he said I would be perfect to provide it. Alice and I, we helped them transition.
Rabbit turns around, his face flushed with tears now.
He would bring the girls to me here, and they would stay until I was convinced that they could survive on their own. They often arrive in a terrible state. Most can't remember why they're here, others don't want to and are repressing it, which only makes it worse. Once they accept what they have done, it gets easier. But they would never be the same.
I don't believe you.
You don't have to. It's the truth.
So, what happened? Where is she now?
Rabbit stalks the man across the room like a fearsome beast.
The gentleman's intentions for our enterprise turned malign, so I
What?
sent her away. I didn't want her mixed up in what was occurring. It was what I had to do.
You abandoned her?
No, never. She insisted that we needed to use tonics to keep them compliant, as it took too long to rehabilitate them in traditional ways. I was worried he would do the same to her.
Grabbing Charles by the lapels, Rabbit pushes him to the floor.
What did you do to her?
Nothing. I did nothing to the others either. I weighed, measured, assessed them medically, you understand. I had to stop. It became too much.
Rabbit pulls out his gun again.
Why not go back where you came from? Take her with you.
You have to comprehend, there is no going back for us. We had things to run from where we were, and we kept running and running until there was nowhere left to go, so we ended up here at the bottom of the bottle on the end of a rope, bleeding out in the bathtub.
Charles sobs uncontrollably. Both men's faces are now awash with sorrow. Rabbit can't believe what he's hearing, but it's obviously the truth.
How?
Often these fantastical things in this world that we cannot explain, yet they come to be.
Why not go to the police?
I tried. They took me for a fool, mocked me, and sent me away. He stopped bringing them here to me after that.
Incandescent with rage, Rabbit sent a pile of books crashing to the floor before taking his anger out in other parts of the room.
Who is this man?
I never knew his name. But there might be.
He looks above him to upstairs. It's all Rabbit needs. He sets off out of the room.
Don't. You'll make him angry. We have a truce. He stays upstairs and I stay down here. If you break it, he'll come for me.
Rabbit slams the door behind him. Interior hallway, muffling the further protests and Charles screaming, wailing. Rabbit heads to the foot of the stairs and begins to climb. Charles bangs against the study door.
Please don't. You don't know what you're doing.
Rabbit ignores him and climbs higher. He reaches the staircase, where the light begins to dip further and further into blackness. Taking out to create a weak flame, he could see, but only just. Getting higher up, Rabbit notices that there is writing on the walls, the incoherent scrawlings of a madman. The word Green Man is repeated over and over, scored into the very structure of the house. Charles continues to bang against the door downstairs while shrieking.
Stop. Don't go any further. He'll know you're coming.
Rabbit carries on, Soon he starts to notice religious symbols and crucifixes have been nailed to the walls. It's just one or two at first, but soon they carpet every available space in the wall and then the ceiling. Eventually, he gets to a point where they form a large archway, which he has to duck under. After that, there's nothing else. Rabbit presses on into darkness. As he walks, he kicks up an impossible amount of dust off the floor. He goes to grab the banister to guide him, but then pulls his hand back to see that it is now black, covered in years of grime. Finally, he's at the top of the stairs and onto the landing. As he puts his foot down, crunch. Looking down, Rabbit finds he stepped on piles of china plates covered in rotting food that litter the carpet just after the last step. He navigates his way down the impossibly long landing for a building of this size. Dust still swirling in the air. To his left and right are open doors. Interior dormitory, dormitory, continuous. Rabbit looks into the place and sees rows of rusty beds with discarded dirty linen on. In the odd corner or abandoned on the floor are Victorian toys, a teddy bear, a doll, some books. It's all creepy as hell. He looks across to see a mirror image in another room on the other side of the landing. Bang, bang, bang. It snaps Rabbit back into the landing. At the end of the landing is a lone door, which is different from the rest. It's padlocked shut. Rabbit advances over as the door rattles back and forth with the banging against it.
Alice?
He sprints over. Thick clouds of dust are sent up into the air all around him.
Alice, I'm coming. Hold on.
Arriving at the door, he charges at it with his shoulder down. Slam. It doesn't budge. He tries to wrench the padlock off and then pulls the door handle. Nothing. Leaning against the door, he shouts through it.
Stand back from the door.
Taking a step to the side, he pulls out his revolver and takes aim at the lock before shielding his eyes and squeezing the trigger. Crack! The flash of the muzzle lights up the place. The padlock plunges to the floor. Rabbit crashes into an upstairs study where a blinding light, the window at the back of the place, is the only one that isn't blacked out. As Rabbit's eyes adjust, he sees that it's just another study filled with an assortment of medical eccentricities. More importantly, there's no Alice. Rabbit makes his way around the dusty room, sweeping over piles of books and papers. Then he sees something that catches his eye. A pile of envelopes in the corner, easily as high as his knee. He opens one. It's an invite to the Knave's Ball with that same mask on it and that same instruction. Don't be late. He rifles through the envelopes, pulling out more and more of the invitations. They're all different sizes, colors, and shapes, but they all have that picture on them, and those 3 words below it. They must stretch back for decades. Crash! Downstairs, Charles is out of his prison and is crawling down the hallway on his belly. Rabbit takes a handful of the invites and turns and leaves the room. In the hallway, arriving at the foot of the stairs, Rabbit finds Charles leaning against the banister, sobbing. He's in a terrible way. His head is cut open and it's obvious that he's dislocated his shoulder. As Rabbit approaches, he tries to car away.
Please, stay away. It wasn't my fault.
Rabbit throws the invites into Charles's lap.
What are these?
Charles looks at him through blurry eyes.
Invites to that ball of his. He used to send them to me, but I never went. I promise I never went.
But do you know where it's held?
Eastbourne Manor, just at the edge of the city.
You said that the dreamers were girls. Were they always girls?
Always girls. But that was my profession. Gynecology.
That's all Rabbit needs. He begins to head for the front door before he's even heard the end of the sentence.
Please don't leave me. He'll be here any minute. He'll kill me.
It's all that Charles can get out before he breaks into uncontrollable wheeling. Rabbit is already out the door, leaving it open behind him.
And that is intermission. Great job, you guys. We're going to take a quick break for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll come back for part 2 of Alice by Ted Wilkes.
Getaway dreamer, I couldn't get enough. didn't see the signs right in front of me. Oh, I'm running in the night so soon. I got nothing left to lose. I'm leaving it all behind. Running in the night with you. I won't let you get away again. We can see it through till the end. But whatever we do, I'm running in the night with you. I used to be the one. I used to be your place to land. Under the shadows, into the palm of my hand. You're always changing the situation. Just when we found paradise, you're always shutting down my conversation. I can never read your mind. Oh, I'm running in the night so soon. I got nothing left to lose. I'm leaving it all behind. Running in the night with you. I won't let you get away again. We can see it through till the end. But whatever we do, I'm running in the night with you. I used to be the one. I used to be your getaway dreamer. I couldn't get enough, thinking that we would last forever. Oh, I'm running in the night so soon. I've got nothing left to lose. I'm leaving it all behind. Running in the night with you. I won't let you get
All right, and that's the end of our break. We're now going to continue with part 2 of Alice. I just want to give a quick plug for our website because I actually haven't mentioned it yet. If you have a script that you'd like us to read on a Friday, go to our website at twitchtablereads.com. We take short films, TV pilots, and feature films like this, and we do this absolutely free. So all you have to do is submit the script and a character list, and we will consider it for a table read. So I am going to return now to our table readers. One moment. Hey
Pee in my
guys,
throat.
I am back. I hope you had a
Hello.
good break. Hello, Alex. How's your voice doing?
Yeah, it's good. It's better.
Yeah?
It's good.
Okay. There's a lot of
Nice.
narration there. You're handling it really well.
Also, I've basically resigned to the fact that I cannot consistently do the deep gravelly voice that the script calls for, so I'm just fucking winging it.
That's okay, man. This has happened to you before, I think, as well.
Look, it's not my fault that my natural voice is all the way up here!
Excuse you?
It's pretty
I
high.
have limits, you know!
Do you really?
Yeah! You want to fight me?
Wow.
Wow.
You want to go?
All right. Alex, you ready?
Fuck you, dude!
Ready?
Want to go home?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. Take it away, Alex.
Alrighty. Exterior outside 33 Daresbury Drive, day. Rabbit sparks up a smoke and heals deeply.
They say that both love and justice are blind. The only other thing that they have in common is guilt.
Apologies, Adobe's.
Outside, another street, the upmarket part of town, day. Rabbit is now walking at a remarkable pace down the footpath. He's keen to get somewhere.
Hiding your guilt is a defense mechanism, but it eats away at you like a cancer until it finally consumes you whole.
As he passes a telephone box, he slows down before darting inside and closing the door behind him. He reaches into his pocket and produces 2 copper pennies, the last of his change. Stares at them.
It's the only other thing that can drive a man insane.
Decision made. He places one of them into the slot to operate the phone and quickly spins the numbers to place a call. It connects.
There's been a robbery at 33 Daresbury Drive.
With that, he hangs up and moves on. Outside Canal Street, early evening, Rabbit walks down the center of the road with another smoke hanging off his bottom lip. There's hardly anyone about, just a lone gas lighter firing up the streetlights for the evening.
The itch is back, and it's spreading throughout my body, getting stronger. It's obvious why. It's begging to be scratched. It's just how long?
A scream interrupts Rabbit. He immediately focuses on the source. It came from over there, down an alley between the houses. Clatter. The gaslighter has downed his tools and is running off into the distance.
Ditching his cigarette, Rabbit races towards the alley. Another shout, more screaming, the sounds of a struggle. Rabbit rounds the corner into a narrow alley, Canal Street. At the end of the alley, there's a dreamer being assaulted by a vagrant, all in silhouette. Rabbit sprints towards them, joining the projection of shadows.
Hey!
The vagrant scarpers, leaving an outline of the girl on the floor, her chest rising and falling quickly. She comes into view. Tiger Lily, 18, usually spunky and sharp, she is a pocket rocket who easily fills the space she occupies, twice over with her attitude. Now, though, she's a huddled mess of clothes with her eyes watery and out of focus.
He said he wanted to play croquet.
She begins to weep. Rabbit pisses over and tries to get her up on her feet. She's having none of it and pulls away.
I'm here to help.
You all say that here. Every single one of you, but you don't. You don't really want to help.
There's the clanging of bells from a police wagon in the distance. Jesus! Tiger Lily lifts her head up at the noise. She immediately stops crying and searches for where it comes from.
Oh no. Oh no, oh no. No, take me back. Take me back. Take me back.
Rabbit's done playing games. He drags her to her feet and props her on his hip before stumbling away with her.
Come on. We need to go.
She bursts into tears again.
You need to be quiet.
Breaking off from her weeping, slightly she looks at his face and stifles herself into a weak sniffling. Outside Rabbit's bed sit. Tiger Lily is still under Rabbit's wing. She's started to come to now, and her eyes are darting wildly around the place. Obviously, not entirely sure where she is.
Stop! Stop! Stop!
We're nearly there.
She uncouples herself from Rabbit, bends over double, hurls. Rabbit looks towards the door of his bedsit. Stood on either side of the entrance are 2 coppers. There's a drunk hurling abuse at them, which is distracted from their post.
Shit.
Wiping her mouth, Tiger Lily glances towards where Rabbit is looking.
It's them. The men from the wagons.
One copper looks their way. Rabbit quickly grabs Tiger Lily and the pair bolt.
You there!
We have to run.
The pair of them set off. Tiger Lily is slow, but Rabbit manages to drag her along at a respectable pace. Interior Cheshire's townhouse, evening. There's a knocking at the door. No answer. Rabbit places his fist through the pane of glass and unlocks it before bundling himself and Tiger Lily in. Dropping her to the floor in the hallway, Rabbit shuts the door and then goes to check out the window. He shuts the curtains. It's a place befitting a well-to-do bachelorette. There are tasteful trinkets on the surfaces, and there isn't much that doesn't look expensive. Rabbit heads past Tiger Lily
Wait there.
and marches up the stairs. Tiger Lily is left alone on her hands and knees, panting and dry heaving. Interior Cheshire's bedroom. Rabbit opens the door. Before looking at anything, he heads over to the window to throw open the curtains.
Get up. I need that dress shirt I left here, and you have to put on a...
Then he sees it. Cheshire's body is a Rorschach blot of red against white satin sheets. All she wears is a hideous expression: betrayal, pain, sorrow. Rabbit looks at her for a moment. His eyes dart around every inch of where she now lies still. He glances to an easy chair in the corner opposite the bed and takes a silk throw off it to cover her up. Her hand lolling over the side of the bed is the only thing that he can't quite envelop in it. Over on the bedside table, he notices that there is a silver picture frame that has fallen down. Reaching over, he picks it up. It's a black and white photograph of people around a banquet. It's not supposed to be of him and her, but it's been framed like that, so they're in the foreground. Like everything else in the room, it's freckled with blood. Rabbit wipes that away so you can see it clearly. She's laughing. He's presenting a wide, happy smile at her. On top of the table, they're holding hands. He places the picture back where it was, upright this time. Rabbit is about to leave, but then looks down at her hand. He sweeps his fingers across hers and sits in the bed. Pushing his hand into his pocket, he fishes out his last copper coin and stares at it. Placing it in the center of her palm, he grasps her hand around it before holding her closed fist tightly. Interior kitchen. Tiger Lily has crawled into the room and is trying to prop herself up on the wall. Her clothes are stained in vomit, and she's inhaling and exhaling hard with her eyes shut. Rabbit arrives with a handful of dresses and deposits them over a chair. He glances over at Tiger Lily, except it isn't her. It's Alice. She's in the same pose, wearing the same clothes, but it's definitely her.
What's going on?
All it takes is a single blink and Alice is gone. It's Tiger Lily there again. Rabbit heads over to the drinks cabinet and takes out various bottles and decanters before mixing them into a glass.
You're safe.
Where am I?
We're not staying long.
Finally, Tiger Lily sits up straight, using the wall as a ballast. She's still a little woozy and weak, but her eyes are clouded over.
Thank you for what you did back there.
Rabbit stays quiet, focused on the task in hand.
I know who you are.
Still nothing from Rabbit.
The others talked about you. They said a girl called Alice told them...
It's always that one word, no matter who says it, that hits him like a train.
You've seen Alice?
No, only heard her name. They kept us separately in...
She trails off. Her head is too heavy for her to hold up. Rabbit grabs the drink off the side and rushes over to her. He kneels down next to her and places the drink on the floor before reaching into his coat and adding the final ingredient out of the pipette bottle. A drop of laudanum. He's frantic, keen to get her awake again. Holding her head up, he makes sure that he's looking directly at him.
What's your name?
Tiger Lily.
Tiger Lily. I need you to drink this, and then you're going to tell me what you know about Alice.
He tries to put the glass to her lips. She's not having any of it.
No, no.
Listen, Tiger Lily, you need to drink this. It's important.
No, I can't. It's bad.
She tries to push the glass away, holding her chin up. Rabbit makes sure she's concentrating as best she can. Once she looks, he takes a large swig of the drink himself. Wham! It hits him hard, but he remains composed.
See? It's fine.
She wrestles out of his grasp and lashes out wildly.
I can't.
You have to. Otherwise, you're going to be like this for days, and we don't have time for that.
She half opens her eyes and then stops resisting. Rabbit gently holds the glass to her lips. She takes a sip.
Where did they keep you separately?
In the mirrored maze, amongst the lights. More.
Rabbit keeps feeding her the drink. She's far more receptive to it now.
Where is the mirrored maze?
Down in the darkness. More.
She could take the glass off him now and gulps down a huge mouthful.
And Alice? Where is Alice?
Tiger Lily opens her eyes. They're crystal clear. Her pupils are enormous. She sees Rabbit and tries to back away.
Tiger Lily, where is Alice?
How do you know my name?
She shrieks and starts to throw her hands wildly in Rabbit's direction.
Help! Help!
Rabbit through the blows and covers her mouth to stop her yelling.
My name is Rabbit White. I found you in an alley and brought you here. You were about to tell me something about a mirrored maze, and I really need to understand where it is.
He takes his hand away. Tiger Lily strains to think, but it's useless.
I can't remember.
Getting off his knees, Rabbit smooths his hair back and begins to pace. He exhales sharply.
Get cleaned up and put on one of the dresses that fit. You're going to have to help me.
I think that ought to be getting.
Rabbit stays, facing away from her.
I just saved your life.
With that, he marches out of the room, left on the floor. Tiger Lily shuffles over to the dresses draped over the chair and feels at one of the deep red ones. It's a beautiful fabric. Interior hallway. Tiger Lily waits at the bottom of the stairs, pulling at the dress she has on, trying to contort it into a better shape. It fits her well, though she's got no business in something this racy. Rabbit comes down the stairs, adjusting the cufflinks on his dress shirt. He scrubs it well when he wants to.
It doesn't fit.
It's fine.
And is the woman who owns this some kind of whore?
You are not to speak of her.
He realizes that he's been too much and reins it in.
It's fine.
Reaching past her, Rabbit removes two ornate masks that are hanging on the wall behind her. He holds one out for Tiger Lily to take.
Where are we going?
A party.
Listen, don't take this the wrong way, but you don't look like the sort of guy who enjoys the kind of party I think we're going to.
I wouldn't be going unless I had to.
And you need to bring me why?
No one will be looking at me if you're close by.
What? So you're not invited to this?
Not technically.
And I'm some kind of cover for you?
Rabbit sighs.
Let me get this right. You don't want to go, you're not invited, and the only person you can think to take to it is a girl you literally just found on the street?
Like I said,
He thrusts one of the masks at Tiger Lily.
I wouldn't normally be going.
I think I'm going to leave.
Tiger Lily attempts to open the door. Rabbit places a firm palm against it to close it shut. She doesn't give up, though, and tries to wrestle it open, pulling at the handle.
I'm close to something here, and you're now my last chance. After this, you can do whatever you want, but tonight, I need you to help me.
Still not interested. Back to the handle.
Please.
She stops her struggle and looks up at Rabbit. She sees it. He's desperate. Rabbit offers the mask to her.
Please.
She looks at the thing in front of her and then back up to the rabbit. Reaching over to one in his other hand, she takes that one and instead begins to march out of the door. Interior evidence lockup, Wonderland Police Station, night. Sat at a desk in the middle of the room, Hatter pores over the photos, notes, newspaper clippings that were found pinned to Rabbit's wall. He moves something aside to reveal the picture of Alice. Picking it up off the table, he really looks at the face in front of him, hoping that it might tell him something.
You still working on that?
Hatter looks up to see Larkspur leaning against the doorway.
Open and shut case. No matter what you want to believe. He did him, Hatter.
Just doesn't make sense. Why keep all this?
Psychos always do.
He hated paperwork when he was being paid to do it. I don't understand why he would keep such detailed accounts of all the murders if he were doing them. I mean, if it were a lock of hair or something more sinister, I'd understand. But mapping the sites of the killings out.
As Hatter is monologuing, Larkspur wanders into the room and picks the photo of Alice up off the desk.
This her? The one he was obsessed with?
Yeah, that's her, Alice.
Larkspur turns the photo around again and looks at it.
Damn. She is fine.
He tosses it down on top of everything else.
I can see how she could drive a crazy guy enough to murder her.
But that's it. He wasn't trying to kill her. He was trying to find her. Desperate to. It was all he talked about.
Or are you sure that wasn't what he wanted you to think?
Hatter is stumped. Maybe he doesn't know Rabbit at all. Larkspur starts to wander out of the room.
Me and some of the boys from upstairs are going for a drink. You look like you could do with some time away from this.
Returning to his work, Hatter buries himself back into the piles of papers.
No thanks.
It'll still be here when you get back.
With that, he leaves. Hatter picks up another piece of paper and begins to read it. He doesn't get very far, though, and puts it back down. Exhaling sharply, he buries his head into his hands. He could do with a drink. Sliding his chair back, he whips his jacket off the back of it and heads for the door, leaving all the evidence spread out on the table. Exterior drive, Eastbourne Manor, night. The manor house looms over Rabbit and Tiger Lily as they approach the front door. It's been dressed up real nice, but there's still something off about the place. In front of the doors, there's a security detail checking guest tickets with a small hand-cranked box that they're feeding invites through. Rabbit is helping Tiger Lily navigate her way. She's slightly uncertain of her feet and is starting to walk a little too quickly, running her words into one another. Both of them have their masks on, obscuring their faces. There are other rabbits in Wonderland.
What was in that drink you gave me?
Nothing that will kill you.
I feel incredible. It's like I could do anything. Have you ever seen a flamingo? They're fascinating creatures.
You're going to have to be quiet now.
He subtly checks up the sleeve of his jacket. There's a tiny one-shot derringer hid away up there. Arriving at the front door, Rabbit presents the invite to the men who are there. Neither of them take it.
You're late. The instructions were clear.
Looking behind him, Rabbit gestures to Tiger Lily, who is currently far more interested in staring up at the sky.
Dames, you know how they are.
The security isn't convinced, but one of them takes the invite from Rabbit away and begins to feed it through the machine. Once the piece of paper is through the machine, the security guard takes it out and runs his fingers across the surface of the document, feeling at the bumps that have been raised up. He looks at Rabbit.
You want to explain this, Viscountess Uterine?
Rabbit's eyes narrow. He quietly slips the derringer into his palm. Tiger Lily notices. Suddenly, she takes him by the hand and stands him aside, making sure that she has slipped the derringer back up his sleeve.
Oui, c'est moi. Quel est le problème ici?
She's perfect as an indignant member of the French aristocracy. The security are a little baffled.
Excuse me, mademoiselle. It's just...
It's just what? Are you, or are you not, going to allow us inside?
Interior Grand Hall. Tiger Lily links her arms through Rabbit's with a wide, regal grin on her face.
What was that back there?
It's not the first time I've had to get myself into a party I'm not invited to.
They wander into the grand room filled with gold and red. All the other revelers are in high spirits, their faces obscured by increasingly bizarre masks. Tiger Lily liberates a champagne flute off a passing waiter's tray. As she pushes it to her lips, Rabbit takes it from her and deposits it on the table.
I thought I was your cover at this thing.
You are.
And don't you think that it's going to be suspicious if I'm not enjoying myself?
With that, she takes another flute from another passing waiter and pours it down her throat in one. Rabbit looks out into the crowd. There, on the steps leading out of the grand hall to upstairs, is the Duchess, dressed up in the most extravagant frock. On the Duchess's arms is a girl in a satin blue dress with impossibly blonde hair. Rabbit can't take his eyes off her as she kisses the Duchess's cheek on demand. Tiger Lily is looking at something around the Duchess's neck. A special piece of jewelry. A lucky rabbit's finger. She looks from the necklace, the rabbit's fingerless hand, and back again.
Is that...
It's not going to be there long.
Hiding his hand away in his pocket, Rabbit watches as the girl in the satin blue dress leaves the Duchess's side and snakes her way through the crowds. She's all he can look at. Rabbit immediately sets off after her. He glances back at Tiger Lily.
Wait there and don't get into any trouble.
Pushing his way through the crowd, he follows the girl that has caught his eye. She darts off into a side room. Rabbit follows her into the servants' corridor, where, opening up a door to a long corridor, Rabbit finds himself on his own. He takes a few steps forward, straining to see in the darkness. A shape emerges from the shadows right in front of Rabbit.
What took you so long?
There she is. Alice, late 20s. She folds herself into him, closing her arms around his neck, and she hugs him tightly, pressing every fiber of herself against him. Rabbit wraps his arms around her, almost melting with happiness. Everything that he's ever wanted is now in his grasp. His eyes glaze over as his bottom lip quivers. Alice detaches herself from Rabbit and straightens herself up. Noticing that his eyes are bleaking, she gently brushes the tear away from his face.
Why didn't you say goodbye?
She ignores the question.
Did you see my father?
Yes.
How is he doing?
You sent me the note. And the invitation.
Alice nods.
6 impossible things before breakfast.
She smiles.
He's lost his mind, but once he sees you...
Reaching for his hand, she interrupts him and tries to pull him further down the corridor.
Come with me.
Rabbit stands firm.
No, we have to leave. Right now.
You can't. Not until I've shown you this.
She grabs his hand again. Rabbit lets himself be taken this time. Interior bidding room continuous. Golden marble fixtures are draped in purples and blues of lighting. In the room there are 3 numbered glass cabinets. In each of them is a female dreamer, 19ish, stripped bare. All of them look dishevelled and broken. One sits on the floor of their prison. Another leans against the glass walls, gently sobbing. In front of them are various party guests examining their naked bodies as if they were livestock. Rabbit and Alice arrive at the back unnoticed. Rabbit can't help but stand there in disbelief.
What is going on?
They are to be sold to the highest bidder. The Duchess promises to supply the prettiest and the youngest who come here. Some will go for as much as 100,000 guilders.
Why?
Buying something that has no value to anyone else means that you can do whatever you want with it.
As she says this, one gentleman guest looks at one of the dreamers and licks his lips, sinister.
Why show me this?
I can't stop it on my own, Rabbit.
No, this is ridiculous. You're coming with me.
And go where? The Duchess will find me in no time and more than likely hurt my father.
We can go to the police. Hatter will...
It's too late for me to be saved, Rabbit. But there are others who can be. These are the lucky ones. Most don't even make it to this place.
Rabbit looks to the girls in the glass cases. As he does, one of the gentlemen present bangs against the wall of the tiny cell, trying to get the attention of the dreamer inside. She looks up for a second with terror in her eyes. At the front of proceedings, a cricket 50s approaches a microphone which looms over him. He's dressed up in a tiny top hat and tails. He clears his throat.
Ladies and gentlemen, we shall be starting the bidding soon. I would like to take this opportunity to assure all of you that these girls we have here this evening are of the highest quality, and therefore we are expecting bidding to be at a premium. If
He trails off, merely background noise now.
When my father tried to help me escape, I couldn't get far. The Duchess found me and threatened to kill me, but eventually thought that I could be useful. The operation had grown from when they used father and me to groom the girls, but they would still be more trusting of one of their own.
Why let yourself be a part of this?
It would happen with or without me. But now I know how to take it apart from the inside.
You're starting to sound like the one upstairs when she's off her head.
Upstairs,
Yeah, Tiger Lily. I'm guessing she was something to do with you?
It's all over Alice's face. It has nothing to do with her.
the one that escaped. You found her already?
I'm guessing so. She kept going on about a mirrored maze.
And you left her alone?
Rabbit can't quite believe his own stupidity.
Go and get her.
Rabbit looks at her. He can see through the mask to her eyes. She's panicked. He takes off out of the room into the grand hall where Tiger Lily is surrounded by various interested revelers who are pawing at her.
interesting, they aren't usually just allowed to wander the party.
She's not comfortable with the interaction and is trying to retreat away. Without a second thought, Rabbit advances over to the group and takes Tiger Lily by the arm and dips down to whisper in her ear.
Run.
No one will let them leave, though. Those who are surrounding Tiger Lily block off the exits.
Excuse me, sir, but have you paid for this woman's company this evening?
Yes.
Then I would like to see the receipt.
I don't think so.
He tries to push his way through, but the group are determined to keep him there. Wham! One of the group punches Rabbit in the forehead. Rabbit becomes a whirling dervish, throwing blow after blow at his attackers.
Run, Tiger Lily! Run!
Others from the party join in with the fray. Tiger Lily tries to make an escape but can't get far because she's accosted by other guests. Bang! Everything stops. Rabbit is in the process of being held down by several of the revelers. The Duchess is standing in the middle of the room with a pistol pointed in the air, seething. Around the Duchess are some henchmen, looking particularly menacing. One looms over the rest of them. Tweedledee.
How dare you ruin my party?
Advancing over to Rabbit, the Duchess raises the weapon against and points it right at Rabbit. The gang of henchmen lumber over as well. Behind Rabbit, Tiger Lily is trying to struggle out of the grip that one guest has her in. The Duchess rips the mask from Rabbit's face.
You. I thought that after everything we discussed the last time I saw you, I had made myself clear.
The Duchess's finger is slowly applying pressure to the trigger just as the hammer of the weapon is about to fall. Alice arrives.
Do we really want to be doing this here, darling? It would make such an awful mess.
Rabbit looks from the Duchess to Alice. Leaning into the Duchess's ear, Alice licks the lobe and whispers.
How about I take them both upstairs and we can save them as a treat you can have later?
The Duchess lowers the revolver and cups Alice's face, smiling right at her for a moment.
That would be so lovely.
Turning to the room, the Duchess addresses the rest of the partygoers.
What are you all looking at? Don't you know that you're at a party?
Immediately, the party returns to normal. Henchmen grab Rabbit and begin to lead him towards the stairs. Tweedledee has the pleasure of dealing with Tiger Lily, who is wriggling around as hard as she can. In the end, he easily scoops her up and pins her to his chest. Alice brings up the rear. Interior corridor continuous. Alice leads the party down the corridor. Rabbit is letting himself be moved by two henchmen who have twisted into a restraint. Tiger Lily still flails around in Tweedledee's arms. Arriving at a large wooden door, Alice moves to open her handbag. Wham! She takes a small knife and slips it right between the vertebrae of one of the rabbit's shoulders. That's obviously the cue. Rabbit's free arm is swung wildly at the face of his second captor. Even Tiger Lily gets it. She throws her head back. Crack! It connects to Tweedledee's nose. He drops her. Rabbit pops the derringer out of his sleeve and lines up a shot at the big guy. Smack! The henchman he thought that he dealt with puts a stop to that. The derringer flies out of his hand and along the floor. Immediately he grabs hold of Rabbit's ears, trying to tear them off. Tweedledee springs into action. Alice and Tiger Lily try to go toe-to-toe with him, but end up being humiliated. Alice comes off particularly badly. The enormous man picks her up with one hand and tosses her into the wall, breaking something in the process. Tiger Lily fights smart and scrambles for the derringer. She lines up a shot. Crack! No matter how big you are, a bullet in the forehead is still a bullet. The big guy drops to his knees and then topples sideways. After the giant has failed, Rabbit delivers the last few blows to the henchman who is causing him grief. With the fight over, Rabbit wipes bloody gristle from his face. In the quiet, Tiger Lily comes to terms with what has just happened and tosses the weapon aside. Rabbit races to Alice and helps her to her feet. She points to the wooden doors. It's a struggle for her to stand.
In there.
Interior study continues. Once they're in the room, Alice slams the door shut. She gestures to the desk in the corner. She's weak and obviously in a tremendous amount of pain.
Bring that here.
Rabbit and Tiger Lily push the heavy piece of furniture over and block the doorway. As they're distracted, Alice feels at her side. It's damp with a thick patch of dark blood. Even the table arrives. When the table arrives, Alice props herself against it and takes an ornate cigarette case out of her bag. She lights up on the smoke and inhales deeply.
Through the fireplace, there's a tunnel. It'll take you out at the industrial district.
I'm not leaving you.
Looking back into his eyes, Alice smiles. She places her hand on his cheek.
I'm tired of running, Rabbit. We've been doing it all of our lives. It's finally time to stop.
She tenderly pushes herself up to sit on the table. Tiger Lily stands in the corner of the room, not sure what to do with herself.
Then I'm staying too.
Don't be silly. Someone has to finish this.
She looks over to Tiger Lily.
She knows what to do.
I don't think.
You do. It's just a case of making your lost memories real again.
Rabbit has not taken his eyes off Alice.
I can't lose you again.
She looks at her wounds.
I'd only slow you down.
Reaching over to her, Rabbit grasps her hands tightly. They look into one another's eyes. Maybe they'll kiss. Slam! Someone is throwing themselves against the door from the outside, trying to open it. Alice braces herself against the desk.
Go, now!
Rabbit is reluctant, but he knows that it's the right decision. He heads over to the fireplace. Tiger Lily follows him. Whoomph! The body outside is thrown against the door again. Alice lights up her second smoke. Glancing over, she sees that Rabbit is crouching at the opening of the tunnel. Whoomph! She smiles at him. And with that, he's gone. It's just Alice now, sucking in that smoke. There's a commotion outside the door as all the banging stops. Suddenly, crack! The blast of a shotgun passes through the wood of the door and rips into Alice's midriff. She's thrown to the floor. Dead. Interior tunnel hidden behind the fireplace. Crack! In the small tunnel, Rabbit hears the shot too. His eyes widen. He knows exactly what just happened. He hangs his head and closes his eyes. In the study, some henchmen pull the door open and slide the desk out of the way. The Duchess steps into the room holding a smoking double-barreled shotgun and looks around, finally laying eyes on the body of Alice.
Find the others.
Henchmen rush off in all directions. The Duchess aims the rifle at the body on the floor. Crack. Interior evidence lockup, Wonderland Police Station at night. Wandering back into the lockup, Hatter is a little woozy. It's nothing he can't handle though. As everything comes into view, he sees that there's now just a bare table in the middle of the room. D.A. Hart steps out of the shadows and leans against the chair.
Care to explain, detective?
She gestures across the table.
I don't understand, ma'am.
I'm pretty certain that I was very clear about the job I intended for you to do.
I was looking into the case.
A case that is already solved.
That's not what the evidence points to. Rabbit was close to something. This is organized. Someone is using the Dreamers.
D.A. Hart stops Hatter by raising her hand in the air.
That's enough of this fantasy, detective.
It's hardly in the realms of fiction. We've never been certain of where they come from, let alone where they go after. It makes sense there's foul play.
I'm going to need your badge and gun.
Hatter keeps quiet. D.A. Hart taps on the metal table.
On what grounds?
Continuing to work on this case would be considered a conflict of interest for you.
How?
As a suspect, you...
This is absurd.
With that, Larkspur arrives in the doorway and leans against the frame.
Detective Larkspur, would you please relieve Mr. Hatter of his things?
Larkspur steps forward. Hatter throws his revolver and police badge onto the table. Turning on his heel, he goes to leave. Not before he can give Larkspur one last look. Fuck you.
Don't think about leaving town anytime soon. There are some people who are going to want to talk to you. One who I know is ravenous at the prospect.
Hatter gets it. Interior warehouse, industrial district, night. A single beam of moonlight from a hole in the roof is the only thing that breaks through the darkness. Rabbit sits in a broken chair, staring into the blackness. It stares back.
It's easy to understand why people are scared of the dark. Evil things find it easier to hide in the shadows. With us not being able to see what they look like, we conjure up shapes of the frightening teeth and claws that must be there. However, it's not the darkness that should scare us. It's the light. In the light, we can see how monstrous what we imagined in the blackness really is.
What do we do now?
It snaps Rabbit back into the room. He stands up and paces.
I'm going to leave town.
You're running away?
What other choice do I have?
We need to finish this, just like Alice said for us to.
Rabbit becomes a frightening creature.
I searched for her for years, and she was dead when I found her.
She wasn't.
He turns to leave.
Well, she is now, so she might as well have been all along.
Rabbit is on his way out of the door.
Why did you go looking for her?
It stops him in his tracks.
I needed to find her, to tell her something.
And did you?
No.
Well, do you think that maybe she managed to tell you what she needed you to hear?
And what was that?
That you should stop running and fight back.
Rabbit turns to face her.
She was right, Rabbit. All we do is run. It's what got us here.
No, it's what got you here. It's what's been keeping me alive.
And this is living?
It's all I know.
You'll find yourself in a corner one day, Rabbit. We all do. I just hope when it finally happens to you that you'll realize it's better to turn and face what's chasing you than curling up into a ball waiting to die.
It's not that simple.
It really is, Rabbit. We all die. It's just that some of us have the opportunity to do something that matters with our lives.
Rabbit thinks for a moment.
Okay.
Right. So what do we do now?
We need to make lost things real.
Okay. How do we do that?
Exterior Absalom's opium den, late night, early morning. Bang, bang, bang on that same door again.
I don't think you're going to like it.
The peephole slides open. Those two eyes poke through the gap to spy Rabbit and Tiger Lily. It closes. There's the sound of turning locks. Interior Absalom's opium den. Tiger Lily lies down in one of the wooden beds, their shoes off. Rabbit sits facing her on a bed by her side. At the far end of the shop, Absalom is packing a pipe full of gunky black opium.
What makes it different?
You'll go into your own mind rather than create anything new. It'll be a struggle, but you have to try and steer yourself into finding out what we need to know,
Why do people do this?
so they can remember what they want to forget.
Tiger Lily looks to Rabbit with wide, frightened eyes.
I'm scared.
Rabbit smiles at her. Interior Absalom's opium den. Later, Rabbit helps Tiger Lily take a hit from the pipe. She can feel the effects immediately. Her eyes slide back into her head.
I'll be right here the whole time.
Will it hurt?
Smash to Tiger Lily's dream sequence where she stands in the middle of a void, surrounded by darkness with her eyes closed. She's soaking wet, drenched from head to toe.
Only if you let it.
She opens her eyes and allows them to adjust to her new surroundings. Looking around, she can't see much, but decides to set off in one direction. Interior Absalom's opium den, continuous. Rabbit watches as Tiger Lily's foot slightly twitches back and forth. Absalom has his face pressed up to the peephole, spying out into the street. Crap. He notices the two heavies, D.A. Hart's favourites, flanked by a small battalion of other coppers heading this way.
We got company.
How long will the door hold?
Size of them, maybe 3 minutes.
Rabbit heads over to the door and looks out the peephole.
Block it up, and then take her and run. I'll hold them off.
Where?
Hatter. He'll know what to do.
Rabbit sets off towards the counter.
What you got behind the counter?
30 and a 12 gauge.
That'll do.
He heads around to the back of the counter and drags a blanket out from underneath before depositing it on top and unwrapping the weaponry. Tiger Lily's dream sequence. Tiger Lily traipses through the darkness. She shivers. Glancing up, she sees there's a large glass obelisk towering over her. There's a screeching behind her. She turns. There are creatures in the distance coming towards her. They're a horrific sight. They advance over, twisted and deformed. Suddenly they're on her and begin to drag her off into the darkness. She screams and tries to claw at the ground. Flash, she's thrown on the gurney and strapped in. Flash, the creatures leer over her, prodding and poking around. One takes a vial of blood. Flash, the coloring of her eyes are examined and her teeth are inspected. Flash, a creature pushes an implement into her before taking readings from it. Interior, Absalom's opium den. Absalom stands over Tiger Lily. He watches her face twist around in pain as her head rolls back and forth on the bench. He glances back to see Rabbit stacking things against the door. Wham! They're here early. The door holds just though. Absalom makes his way over to Rabbit and wrestles the shotgun off him.
You don't have to do this.
With the weapon in his hands, Absalom snaps it open, checks the ammo, snaps it shut, looks down the sights.
It's our job to get them home when they can't find a way.
Crack! A rogue bullet is fired through the door. It hits Absalom in the shoulder. He returns fire. The weapon in his hands is one hell of a cannon. Rabbit pops a few rounds off too. Silence. Absalom limps around to the other side of the counter, keeping the shotgun trained at the door.
Go, get out of here.
He brings the butt of the gun down on the tap connected to the barrel next to him. A thick, viscous liquid gushes out onto the floor. He and Rabbit trade a look. Godspeed. There's a hail of gunfire from the other side of the door. That's it. Rabbit runs off and picks Tiger Lily off the bed and puts her into a fireman's carry. Tiger Lily's dream sequence. Tiger Lily is huddled in the corner of the blackness in a shredded hospital gown. Everywhere around her are large panes of glass, creating a maze of corridors. Her world begins to shake from being carried outside in the real world. Around her, the glass shatters, the shards flying off in every direction, filling the darkness with reflective dots. It's almost beautiful. Suddenly, everything is turned sideways. Tiger Lily falls backwards and tumbles down as the floor becomes a wall. Smack! She hits the bottom of the darkness. Silence, but not for long. Smack! The glass that was hanging in the air rains down on top of her. She shields her face as it crashes down on her. The glass is joined by bodies, lots of them. They're other dreamers. All of them have the same face. Alice Little. First, just the one lands close to her with a sickening thud. The others begin to fall, covering every inch of the ground and enveloping Tiger Lily. She screams. Inside Absalom's opium den, crack, the heavies are through the door and advance over to Absalom, who is slumped against the back of the counter, bloodied and beaten. At the threshold of the establishment of the stacked bodies of coppers, Absalom has put up a pretty good fight. Absalom pushes a cigarette into his mouth and lights up, taking the best lungful he's had in a while. He gives his guest all the middle fingers from the hands on the other side of his body, on one side of his body. Crack, 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 they unload what's left and their weapons into him. With his body now limp, he drops the smoke onto the floor, right into that viscous liquid. Boom! The whole place becomes a giant fireball. In the front room of Hatter's place, Hatter is sat alone in the middle of the room, in an easy chair, sipping what looks like pond water from a teacup. He gets up and heads to the window. Parting the curtains, he sees that there's a police detail pacing outside. Raising his cup to them, he takes a good long drink. Crash! There's a commotion in the back of the house. A rather drunk Hatter stumbles his way over to see what it is. Interior kitchen. As Hatter rounds the corner, he sees Rabbit placing Tiger Lily on the table. She thrashes about, obviously trying to wake up from a nightmare. She's all that Hatter can look at.
What the fuck?
Rabbit is preoccupied, sifting through the cupboards in the wall.
Jones and Harris were watching the back of the house. When they wake up, tell them I'm sorry.
And what am I?
Where do you keep the booze, Hatter?
You can't be serious. You do know that we're both going down for this. Bringing one of them here only makes this whole thing worse.
Rabbit isn't interested and is rifling through the kitchen cupboards, pulling out an increasingly disparate array of bottles.
This is much bigger than you think, Hatter.
He's now onto the mixing stage of the process, one drop of laudanum to finish it off.
I saw the files you had, but that doesn't matter. The gallows aren't going to care that we're innocent men.
Hatter tries to intervene. Rabbit pushes him aside.
Well, we better find someone else to take the drop for us.
I'm not doing this, Rabbit.
That's it. Hatter marches off towards the front door. Rabbit notices and raises his revolver, pulling the hammer back. Click.
Don't.
I have to. It's my only hope.
It's not. I'm close to breaking this. I just have to find out what she saw.
And I'm sure that her testimony is going to hold up in court.
Who said anything about court?
You got to stop running, Rabbit. There are some things you have to face up to.
Hatter continues on his march. Rabbit's finger applies more pressure to the trigger.
Don't make me, Hatter.
Hatter's hand is on the handle of the door.
They get me, and I'll take everything they throw at me, testifying that you had nothing to do with it. I just have to try. For Alice.
They're not going to arrest you, Rabbit.
He goes to open the door.
They never get to go home, Hatter. We've been lied to all this time. The Duchess has been selling them in some sort of fucked up marketplace where the highest bidder gets to do whatever they want to them.
Hatter's still not convinced. Rabbit lets it all come out of him.
She's dead, Hatter. After all that time searching for her, and when I finally find her, she's taken away from me. The Duchess. The Duchess killed her. And I never got to say what I needed to say.
Hatter takes his hand off the door.
I'm going to put an end to this.
"5 minutes, then you need to be gone."
I need your help.
And I'm giving you 5 minutes of it.
Rabbit can see that's all he's getting. He heads back to Tiger Lily and props her head up. Gently pulling her eyelids open, he slowly drips laudanum from the pipette into her pupils. Whoosh! Tiger Lily sits bolt upright immediately, panicked, confused, disorientated, with deep black saucers for pupils. She thrashes about, knocking things off the table and the wall. Rabbit fights past her wild limbs and grabs at her face.
Tiger Lily. Tiger Lily. You're safe. I need to know what you saw.
I couldn't stop it.
Trails off and returns to her panic state. Rabbit points to the mixture that he has brewed.
Bring me that.
Once it's in his hand, Rabbit gently places the drink to Tiger Lily's lips. She takes a sip, which gradually starts to bring her round. She coughs, splutters, and then retches before wiping her mouth.
What did you see?
A tower, large, entirely of glass.
Anything else?
Her eyes on focus. In Tiger Lily's dream sequence, the bodies of the dreamers plummet from the sky on top of Tiger Lily. She looks to the side to see Alice's lifeless face staring back at her 100 times over. Then it's joined by another body. Rabbit. In the kitchen, Tiger Lily comes back around.
No, that's all I can remember.
You got any ideas, Hatter?
Hatter thinks through the haze.
It sounds like the financial district. There's a building there that's supposed to be owned by Duchess. It's always guarded though, and we've never managed to get near it.
Good thing I don't have to wear a uniform then.
How the hell do you think you're going to get past the front gate?
I'm gonna stand there real polite and then blow a fucking hole in it.
With what?
The Riverbats still have their disagreements with Duchess. Maybe they'd be willing to offload some hardware if they knew where I'm going to be pointing it.
You're a fantasist, Rabbit. This is all because some girl burrowed her way into your head and you can't let her go. At least the noose will kill you quick. Anything the Duchess does will take time.
Rabbit just ignores it and begins to head out the back door. He turns and points to Tiger Lily.
Look after her, won't you?
Like hell she's staying here.
Rabbit looks to Hatter. Come on, you can't be serious.
5 minutes are up, Rabbit.
Heading back, Rabbit helps Tiger Lily off the table and out the back door. Slam. It's closed with some considerable force. Hatter is left alone. He looks like he needs another drink. Inside the Duchess's office in the Lucky Cat, D.A. Hart strides through the doors of the office. There's an uneasy silence as the Duchess finishes up yet another game of solitaire.
Madam Hart, so good of you to come.
You can't just summon me like this, Duchess. I'm not one of your fucking goons that arrives the second you click your fingers.
And yet you are here all the same.
There's a sinister calm to the room.
What do you need from me?
There has been this terrible ailment afflicting me as of late that I am struggling to shift. Despite the professionals I have spoken to promising me that it would have taken care of itself by now.
It is in hand.
It doesn't bloody look like it.
What am I meant to do? There was nothing in our agreement about letting the sick fuckers hang them inside out from lampposts.
After the transaction, it is not my business what the buyer does with their product.
Well, it should be. It's drawn unwanted attention.
And it has always been your job to ensure that no one is looking, especially those like the rabbit.
He isn't one of mine.
Then he should have been easier to expunge than this, surely.
We are looking at other possibilities as we speak.
The Duchess scoffs.
Scoff. You mean once again, in this partnership, I am the one taking on the risk and the responsibilities?
You are well compensated for.
No. You are the one who is allowed to posture around Wonderland like the savior of the innocents, as if you personally deliver them home yourself.
Don't pretend like you care about them.
I am not the one who seems to have suddenly developed a conscience about the matter. This is a business interest of the both of us that must be vivaciously protected. You know the old saying that there is nothing worse in business than bad publicity.
I understand.
Good.
With that, the Duchess gets up and begins to pace around the room, stopping every few steps to examine a painting on the wall or one of the busts on a plinth.
Do you appreciate art, Madam Hart?
I've never had time.
I find it simply divine. It's the realists, so I am always those who have poured their very soul into ensuring that the picture they craft upon a canvas is an exact replica of the very thing that they witnessed happen at that precise moment. A romantic would see uncontrollable power, unpredictability, and the potential for cataclysmic extremes within nature. However, a realist is one who sees only order, structure, and hierarchy.
The Duchess has circled the room and is now looming over D.A. Hart. Taking her hand, the Duchess strokes it tenderly.
Even within something as simple as the human finger.
Captivated by D.A. Hart's fingers, the Duchess can't stop looking at them. Suddenly, the Duchess looks up right into the eyes of D.A. Hart and forcefully grips her hand.
Do you know that he ruined my party?
It looks like D.A. Hart didn't know that. Interior dive bar, early evening. Hatter sits up at the bar, rocking from side to side in drunken bliss. He takes a healthy portion from the drink in front of him. As he turns, Larkspur wanders up to him.
Come to take me in?
No. I just want to apologize for what happened at the station.
He pulls up a stool next to Hatter, who continues to sway and slur.
By gods, if it weren't to be you, it would have been someone I liked. And now that would have been a travesty.
I brought you a gift to let you know how sorry I am.
A gift?
Yeah, the guys at the station said that there was something in evidence that you used to be particularly partial to back in the day.
Hatter's eyes widen.
A smidge of the marching powder.
Larkspur nods. Necking what is left of his drink, Hatter then jumps off his stool and heads towards the back exit of the bar.
Well, shall we move down then?
Exterior alley behind the dive bar, early evening. Hatter flings himself into the secluded alleyway and stumbles over to the wall opposite to relieve himself. Larkspur follows him out and ensures that the door is firmly shut behind him. As Hatter turns, he's managed to get his revolver loose. It's knocked out of his hand by Larkspur, who then cracks him in the face.
This is nothing personal.
You punch like a girl.
Wham! That one was a little better. Flush in the nose, Hatter slumps to the floor.
Why is he always bloody right?
He spits blood, followed by a tooth.
I'm guessing this means that the department has got something to do with this too, then.
Larkspur isn't really listening. He's unraveling piano wire out of his pocket.
I'm just a hammer, Hatter. Hammers don't get to ask questions. And neither should alcoholics.
Ha! Hatter laughs.
Alcoholics go to meetings, Larkspur. I'm just a drunk.
Hatter laughs again. It's nice that he sees the funny side of it. With that, Larkspur wraps the piano wire tightly around Hatter's throat and pulls up sharply. Exterior Riverside, Industrial District, early evening. Rabbit and Tiger Lily wait by the side of the river. In the distance, towers of industry belch black smoke smog into the air, cracking open a pack of smokes. Rabbit does his thing.
Give me one.
You ever smoked before?
No.
She snatches one out of the pack.
Quite a time to start.
Well, your friends seem to think that this was a suicide mission. Might as well do everything before I check out a second time.
Plucking the lighter out of his hand, she sparks up and inhales and coughs.
Someone once told me that it's curious, pretending to be two people at once.
Tiger Lily ignores the statement and continues to try and play the cool kid.
You know you don't have to be here.
Where else would I go?
Anywhere.
Doesn't sound like my kind of place.
And what is your kind of place?
Small talk now, really?
I surprise myself sometimes.
All right then.
I don't know. Someplace simple where I can have an honest trade. Just, be happy.
Rabbit sucks in a lungful.
Sounds awful.
I can't tell if you're kidding.
Like I said before, I surprise myself sometimes.
Tiger Lily has a moment to herself and then takes half-finished smoke and plops it into the water. There's the faint whirring of a motor from further up the canal. It's a beaten-up old barge that is slowly making its way towards them. Various shapes dart about on the deck, crewing the thing. Rabbit ditches his smoke underfoot and crushes it.
Let me do the talking.
Because that worked so well the last time.
These guys aren't going to care if you're a French princess.
As the vessel comes into view, you can see the crew scurrying around, long tails snaking around behind them. The leader of the group, Mortimer, is the largest of them, snapping orders at those below him. They pull up to be next to Rabbit and Tiger Lily. Mortimer leans over to the side of the boat to talk to Rabbit. His nose twitches every so often.
Detective Rabbit White, it's been a while.
Not long enough, Mort.
Now, is that any way to be talking to someone who's doing you a favor?
As far as I'm concerned, this is a quid pro quo kind of deal.
Learn yourself some fancy words after you left the force, did ya?
You got what I asked for or not?
Mortimer gestures to one of his crew, who strips a tarp off a large wooden box. Inside, there's a substantial haul of weaponry. Taking one of the more sinister-looking things out of the container, Mortimer inspects the weapon.
So, imagine my surprise when I was on my way over here that I received a phone call.
Doesn't take a genius to understand what's going on here. Rabbit starts to push his way in front of Tiger Lily.
From none other than the Duchess. Now, as you know, we've never seen eye to eye, but when someone offers you something for doing nothing in this line of work, you can't really turn them down, can you?
Cocks the firing pin of the weapon in his hands back and points it right at Rabbit.
Let the girl go.
Mortimer roars with laughter.
Going soft, are you, Rabbit?
Mortimer lines up the shot again. Crack! The bullet flies in from somewhere off to the right. It passes straight through Mortimer's head. It's Hatter. He's bruised and bloodied, but he's here, armed with a police service revolver. Mortimer drops the weapon right in front of Rabbit. Immediately, all hell breaks loose, bullets firing in all directions as the battle commences. Rabbit, Tiger Lily, and Hatter work together to dispatch the remaining river rats. It's a proper boarding of a ship. As the dust settles, Rabbit looks over to Hatter.
Changed your mind?
Someone showed me that it was the right thing to do.
Interior, Duchess's glass office, top of the glass elevator, night. Rain lashes against the panes of glass, giving the view a Gaussian blur. At the top of the building, the Duchess looks out over the whole of Wonderland, whilst examining D.A. Hart's severed finger in the dying light from outside. A goon enters.
Well,
They're on their way. It appears the one with the top hat stepped in at the last moment.
incompetence everywhere. This ends now.
The Duchess begins to storm out of the room, barking orders.
Get things ready for our guest's arrival.
Off one door being thrown open, the interior foyer, the glass elevator. Another one is too. This time, though. Rabbit, Tigerlily, and Hatter are stood in the doorway, armed to the teeth. It's the first time the rabbit has had the right tools for the job. There's a welcome party to meet them, and they've brought their toys to play with. Pandemonium erupts as everyone begins to pull the trigger. Crack, crack, crack. Rabbit, Tigerlily, and Hatter fight through the foyer into a corridor on either side. There are rooms where dreamers are being prepped, tied to gurneys, weighed and measured. It's a sterile space. As Rabbit walks down the corridor, the attendants flee out the back. Moving over to Tigerlily, Rabbit can see that she's been distressed. Looking over at one dreamer who's tied down with her eyelids wrenched open. At the end of the place, a service elevator roars into life, slowly coming up. B. Hatter takes in a deep breath. G. Tigerlily adjusts the strap of her rifle. 1. Rabbit snaps his weapon shut. Ping! It's here. Nothing yet, though. Suddenly, the room is plunged into darkness. Shouting, scuffles, the sound of a fight breaking out into the darkness. And a flash, someone discharges their weapon, illuminates the fracas in a tableau of violence. Flash, a fist at the moment of impact against a face. Flash, Rabbit has 4 henchmen atop him in a dog pile. He wriggles free, kicking out those who chase him. Flash, Hatter fires at a knee, taking a leg off with it. Ouch. Flash, Rabbit lets one of them have it with the business end of his rifle. Flash, Tigerlily trips a henchman. Hatter piles into him on the floor. Another flash, Rabbit's body slams a henchman to the ground. And flash, a headbutt. Down he goes. Silence. The lights come back on. Everything is now smeared in crimson. There's one hell of a fight. Rabbit looks to the elevator.
Get them out of here.
He marches down towards the open doors.
Rabbit, wait.
It's either he can't hear them or he doesn't want to. Rabbit closes the grate and pushes the button before Tigerlily or Hatter can stop him. They lock eyes for a moment before Rabbit heads down, disappearing from view. In the mirrored maze at night, the elevator arrives. Rabbit steps out into a hall of mirrors. Each step he takes is echoed 1,000 times over.
Maybe the darkness is worse than the light. Once you can see what it is you're fighting, once it's out there where you're able to look at it with your own 2 eyes, it loses all its power. That, and once you can see it, once you know that it's there, clear as day, you can shoot the fucking thing and know that just like everything else that you think that you fear, once you see it bleed, you're not afraid of it anymore.
He heads further and further into the maze, making sure that his rifle remains pointed around every corner. Then he sees something. It's reflected hundreds of times into the distance. It's a dreamer, lying against a mirror, limp and deformed. He races over and tries to cradle her in his arms. All he can see is Alice. He looks around. There are others scattered around on the floor, cold and dead.
Those who didn't meet the requirements.
Rabbit spins around and then stands, pointing his weapon at the source of the noise.
Where are you?
We push them off into this labyrinth if it's considered that they are of no use. It often doesn't take long for them to realize that they are trapped here forever. It still allows for the occasional profit. There are those who enjoy the sensation of the chase. But I don't need to tell you that, do I?
Show yourself, Duchess.
It's sad, really, how they end up here, but I give them a chance to make this new start different from their last.
You're a monster.
How so? I rehabilitate these girls and find them a purpose that they were so desperately needing in their past lives.
Rabbit catches sight of the Duchess. Crack. Nope. Just a reflection.
Poor show, Rabbit. I thought you'd know better than that. Did she ever tell you how she...
A leg. Crack. Another reflection.
She told me. Such a sad case. But she was the most perfect specimen that ever slumbered here in Wonderland. Oh, I couldn't let anyone else have her. She was always destined to be only
Crack.
mine.
From out of the darkness, a bullet zips through Rabbit, cutting him down in one. Specks of crimson fly from the entry wound. His body crumples and hits the floor. Cut to black. Blackness.
99 bottles of beer on the wall.
Flash, interior, mirrored maze. Everything is blurry. Rabbit can just about make out a figure standing over him. Alice. Cut to black.
99 bottles of beer.
And another flash in the interior maze. Alice is now heading over to him, but it's not Alice. It's Cheshire. Cut to
Take
black.
one down, pass it around.
And then another flash. It's Alice now. Definitely Alice. She smiles at Rabbit, cutting to black.
98 bottles of beer on the wall.
In the flash, we're back in the maze. Cheshire this time. She darts over to Rabbit. Her voice is distant, ethereal.
Bunny, what happened?
And it cut to black. In the blackness,
98 bottles of beer on the wall.
another flash. We're back in the maze where Alice is right over Rabbit this time. She smiles again, extending her hand towards him.
Come on, Rabbit. We're going to be late.
Rabbit can't respond. It doesn't matter to Alice. She turns and skips away from him.
Wait. Don't leave.
Stopping, she looks back around. Rabbit tries to push himself up, and we cut to black. And inside the blackness,
98 bottles of
a
beer.
flashback to the maze where Cheshire is nose to nose with Rabbit. It's Alice's voice coming out of her body, though.
What's the matter? Bunny?
And we cut to the blackness,
You take one down and pass it
and
around.
back to the maze where Alice pushes her hair out of her eyes.
I'm sorry. Sorry I couldn't get you home.
Smiling at him. That's all she needed to hear from him. But it's Cheshire's voice now.
Don't be silly, Rabbit. You tried.
She leans in to kiss him, though she keeps changing between Alice Cheshire constantly. Finally, it's just Tiger Lily. She's not trying to kiss him. She's inches from his face, screaming.
Get up!
It brings Rabbit right back into the room. Tiger Lily scrambles to drag him to his feet. It's just in time, too. Another bullet zips past him and shatters a mirror. Hatter is laying down some suppressing fire, trying to corner the Duchess. Zip! A rogue bullet hits Hatter in the shin, sending him to the floor. Rabbit races over, firing wildly into the darkness, shattering the mirrors in front of him one at a time, leading a path to a clearing. Rabbit finds himself in the middle of the maze. He's on one side, the Duchess is on the other. Rabbit tries to pull the trigger again. It clicks. The Duchess smiles and brings out a small vial from a pocket with "Drink Me" written on.
Give it up, Duchess. This is the end.
On the contrary,
The Duchess knocks the thing back in one.
it only just got interesting.
It starts to take effect right away, immediately making the Duchess grow in size, muscles bulging, teeth sharpening, now one fearsome enemy to fight. Rabbit flexes his hands into fists. It's a fight for the ages. Rabbit swings wild, fast fists filled with righteous anger. The Duchess connects more often than not, though, causing some serious damage to Rabbit. He gets knocked to the floor, the Duchess looming over him, about to crush him into dust. Tiger Lily arrives and unloads round after round into the Duchess, taking out large chunks of flesh. The Duchess is now far more interested in Tiger Lily and moves to deal with her. Rabbit knows that this is his cue. He takes the broken glass from the floor and jams it into the Duchess's open wound. He finds another piece, again, and another piece, again and again, frenziedly filling the Duchess's body with more and more shards of glass. Finally, Rabbit stops, breathing heavily. The Duchess topples over and begins to return to normal size. Getting up off the floor, Rabbit stands looking at the Duchess, whose body is now a patchwork of shards. The Duchess's breathing is labored. Rabbit advances over and snatches his finger from the necklace around the Duchess's neck. Still, though, the Duchess tries to cling on.
She's dead, Rabbit. Alice is dead.
Rabbit waits. He's got all the time in the world. Finally, that's it. It's all over. The lights go out in the Duchess's eyes. Tiger Lily arrives by Rabbit's side.
When the world starts spinning again, you can forget what it used to feel like to have something turning under your feet.
Hatter limps over too. Tiger Lily summons up a gob of phlegm and hacks it on the floor. Interior emergency ward. Infirmary, day. Rabbit and Hatter are in beds opposite one another in the ward. It finally looks like a professional has seen to all of Rabbit's wounds. However, it's Hatter who's currently insisting on all of the nurses' attention. A doctor walks into the room and heads over to Hatter's bedside and closes the curtain to deliver a private consultation. Rabbit and Hatter trade a look before the curtain shuts.
It makes you feel sick, like you're going too fast all of a sudden.
As the doctor throws the curtains back, Hatter looks across from him. There's no Rabbit there. Interior corridor infirmary. Rabbit heads down the corridor, pulling on his jacket and pushing up his collar.
You remember the reason you had to make everything stop in the first place. That for a moment things had to be still so you can get some clarity in order for you to put them back to the way they should be.
In the canteen in an asylum, Charles sits upright with the bright, clear eyes. He scrawls away in a book with a long quill, animated with his writing, keen to get into the next paragraph.
So that those who deserve better could find their way out of the net.
Interior Chief's Desk, WPD station. Hatter is behind the desk, barking orders at other detectives with a phone pressed to his ear. Exterior market stall, Main Street. Tiger Lily is sorting out a display of fruit on her stall. She turns to look down the street, feeling a presence close by. Outside in the graveyard, Rabbit stands with his hands clasped together over an open grave. The only other person there is the priest. Next to the headstone is a large black and white picture of Cheshire, smiling at the camera. Pulling a single coin out of his pocket, Rabbit turns the copper disc over in his fingers. Reaching into his other pocket, he finds the picture of the pair of them that was on the Cheshire sideboard. He puts them both in the same hand and tosses them into the hole. Inside, the DA Hart's office night. Crack! The doors burst open as a team of burly officers rush into the room. Looking up, they see DA Hart slumped over the desk with her wrists opened up. 2 large pools of blood are leaking out across the wood. In her hand is a savage, claret-stained razor blade.
And those who thought that they could escape from it realize they can't.
Interior corridor, infirmary, day. Rabbit paces down the corridor.
You begin to feel the amygdala again, telling you to run, making you think that you need to pick your feet up and find the nearest exit.
Fishing in his jacket pocket, Rabbit finds a cigarette and places it in his mouth. He then discovers his lighter and cups his hands around the smoke.
It's not always to run away from something, though. There are some things...
A passing nurse interrupts Rabbit.
Excuse me, sir. You can't do that in here anymore.
The flame is mere millimeters from the end of the smoke. Rabbit looks at her and grits his teeth. Exhales. He then closes his lighter up and pushes the smoke behind his ear before heading out the door. The end.
Yay!
Woo! Ha!
It's very difficult to
Air
stop while
horn's
also
not
holding the push to
working.
talk key.
I know.
Ha!
Come
Apparently,
on.
air horn is broken.
Here, let me do it.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. For some reason, it's not working. Cool. Awesome. Great work, you guys. Thank you so much, Ted, for sharing your script with us. Let's start the feedback with Kat. Kat, what were your thoughts? I know Alex needs a pee break, so he's going to go last, and he narrated, so
Fine.
what can you do? So what were your thoughts on the script?
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank the author for submitting it. It's always scary having a script read out loud, and this was very well written. I'll be completely honest, I've had kind of a weird day and my brain isn't really working. It's not really engaging. So a lot of this went just whoosh over my head. So I really wasn't following the story at all. And that's really not a criticism of you. It's just where my head is. But I will say that considering that I really wasn't sure what was going on, the way that you like described the characters was very good, because I was never confused as to how I should be trying to play someone. So I mean, even the ones that were just like 1 or 2 lines, I still feel like I felt like I knew what that character's, where they were coming from, etc. So well done on that. Plus, you know, it's Alice, so it's always going to be a little bit whooshy, over the head kind of thing. The only other note that I made was that I don't know whether you're actually English, like British or not, but Canal Street, very well known gay village in Manchester. I assume that's not an intentional thing, but it is all that like northern people are going to be able to think about, because it's like super well known. It's like an awesome place to go. It's where we have Mardi Gras. So that I mean, I know Canal Street's like a famous name anyway, but it's like particularly well known. It's where Queer as Folk was set, if you ever watched that. I don't know. But that was the only other note that I made, really, because the whole thing just kind of floated off over my head. But the bits that I caught seemed great. It all seemed really well written. Like I said, the characters are good. So thank you again for submitting it. And I'm sorry my feedback isn't better.
No, it's fantastic. That was a really fun fact that you shared. I did not know that about Queer as Folk or Canal Street. And looking at Ted's Twitter, he is in London, England. And in the chat, he says he lived there. So that's interesting. Moving on now to Oronetta, what were your thoughts on the script?
Hi. All right. Well, I just want to thank the writer for letting us read the script. I did enjoy this one. It's outside of my usual realm of things I like, and I have a very small pool of things I like. But this fit in there somehow, which is great. Overall, I really enjoyed the read. I think the 2 things that I got hung up with on the script is, number 1, the title. Because as I was highlighting everything, I was like, oh my god, Alice never says anything. But then it kind of fleshed out a little bit more as we were doing the actual read. But I'm wondering if there would be a title that would be more descriptive of what we're going to see, because in actuality we're not seeing that much of Alice. It's really more about Rabbit and about what he's going through. So that was number 1 for me. Number 2 is everything was written so descriptively, like Kat said, and I enjoyed that. But I got hung up on the part where Rabbit is engaging with Cheshire, and I was confused as to whether these were like an actual rabbit and an actual cat, or then I'm thinking of the animated versions, but then I'm also thinking of they're part people and part cat and part rabbit at the same time. And I realized there wasn't a whole lot of descriptors there, just in terms of what you're hoping to get out of the characters. Like, we're not seeing a lot of what they look like and those kinds of descriptors. But overall, that's really all that I had. Again, really enjoyed it, and I thought that it was quite good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ori. Moving on now to Script Chick. What were your thoughts on the script?
Cool. Well, thank you, Ted, for sharing. Alice, I enjoyed reading it. I didn't even think about this, how I agree with Oronetta about the whole, like, the sex scene, like trying to visualize. I actually had a little bit more bead on Rabbit when I went back to reference, but it was just a little, just because you're drawing from Alice in Wonderland, you mentioned her, she's basically the Cheshire Cat, but she doesn't have those features either, you know, with having like ears like the rabbit did. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, why not? Like, I don't know. There's like, you're mixing the noir and Alice in Wonderland, and I feel if you're naming him the cat, I don't know. It's like I'm juggling these two. Here you've got the noir, which is the tone and setting, but then you also have Alice in Wonderland, which is the original material. So to see those mixed together, I guess that's where I'm coming from with that. But I did really like the set piece in the Ball and Masquerade. I think that'd be so fun to watch. I really like what you did with Tweedledee, and the fact he's like kind of this like tatted up beefy guy. Did I miss Tweedledee done. Like, I forgot what happened to him, if he was mentioned at all, but if he's not mentioned, I think he should.
I do not believe he was thinking
Okay.
back.
Like, I didn't know if he was dead or something. Like, I don't know. I don't know Tweedledee's backstory, but I just feel like that should be addressed because you're drawing on the source material, and usually those two are together. I also like your line. I really liked, once you see it bleed, you're not afraid of it anymore. I thought that was really good, especially for Rabbit to say. A big thing for me would be this dreamer aspect. I think is the most original that you're introducing here. And I really wanted to be clear about it, whereas I feel like in the beginning you're more setting up the tone and the setting, the noir setting, but I'm not really getting the concept you're introducing of these dreamers. So I feel like there's your kind of fish out of water opportunity, is through this dreamer POV, because I don't really understand why exactly they're going to Wonderland if it's this way. It's like, I understand if Alice would want to go to Wonderland if it's all set up how Lewis Carroll did it, but I'm not really seeing what they're getting out of this besides just drugs, in which case I don't, you could find that in our world. So I'm just trying to see here why so many people want to go, how they get there, and just like this whole aspect of dreamers, since it becomes such a big thing later down the line in your story, which I like. I like that twist about none of them actually ever left. That was that big plot there. One note, autopilot. I don't know if that's anachronistic or not. That just stood out to me. And then you open with saying it's years after the story, but how would we know that? I'm just wondering, can you do that as you're writing? Otherwise, maybe you just say a year date or have it in text, because I don't know if I would get that just as an audience member watching it. Let's see. I wondered at page 41, why Rabbit says, why do they never wear lipstick? And I'm like, this is a normal person. So it's like, how does he know, like, just these dreamers never wear lipstick? Like, that was really weird to me. Like, how do you assume that about a person or, a group of people, that they just never wear lipstick? So it was weird, kind of like clue. It was supposed to be this big clue to clue him in onto the next thing. And I was just kind of wondering how he naturally got to that assumption. But I do like the lipstick reveal on page 49. I just thought the prose was a little dense, because you do have a lot of chunks in there. So maybe that's just my personal thing. Let's see. I do like Tiger Lily. I just feel like Rabbit became less active once she was established. It's her at the very end doing the big dream thing, being the most active, and it was really cool to see her do that. But Rabbit's just kind of like hanging out on the sidelines, and I felt like he was a little bit like that earlier, when he's pretty much getting knocked out and dragged to the places where he needs to find out the information. So I would just be a little bit careful of that, to have your main character be a little bit more active. But he is a cool character. It's like, I think this is someone I would want to see on screen. I think it is a really cool approach with a noir version of Alice in Wonderland. So cool. I think that's all I have. So thank you so much, Ted.
Thank you, Script Check, and thanks for joining us from Hawaii, I think is where you're at right now, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Yes.
Aloha.
Aloha. Moving on now to Cheddarman. What were your thoughts on the script?
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it. Thank you, author person, for submitting the script. I'm kind of in the same boat as Kat tonight, feeling kind of just out of it. And but yeah, like Kat said, I was still able to know for the most part how to do my characters, even if I was having trouble following it. And I don't know if it was just me or if the story was really confusing. But that said, Larkspur was a little hard for me to pin down. I didn't quite know where he was coming from. I mean, like the character is there, but maybe he could use some more characterization. I liked the kind of noir thing. I thought that was really fun, and there were some times where I was wondering if it was like intentional shout outs to other movies of that genre, like that scene early on, page 8, reminded me a lot of the scene in Roger Rabbit where Jessica Rabbit like is singing song and you know she's getting all up on Eddie Valiant, and then she like puts her lips up to him and then she backs off. It's like the same thing. So I was curious if that was an homage, and if it is, if it's not, then people are going to compare it. So just be aware of that. And the ending was reminded me a lot of Lady from Shanghai, which is a classic noir film. So I was wondering if that too was an homage or a coincidence with the mirror scene. Little points, things I wrote down that stood out. Let's see. Oh yeah, on page 28, I felt like the scene changed over in an odd place. Like they're in the hallway, and then Rabbit goes inside and he's looking for something, and then the scene changes, and then she's in there, Cheshire's in there with him. I don't know, it felt to me that like the scene should change over to him and they're looking for something, so we can see that he's doing that, and then she comes in just a little, I don't know. And on page 61, the action line where it says that something, it's over there, seems just kind of weirdly conversational, like you were just telling someone, oh, it's over there. Like it seems out of place. Like you could just say it's from this alley. Like you don't need the over there and there. I don't know why I'm little just weird things. That's all I have to say. Oh yeah, and the coins. The coins, he gave a coin to Cheshire, he put one in her hand. So then it seems strange that he threw one into her grave at the end to me. Like it seemed like maybe if he had failed to put one in her hand, then at the end it would make sense if he tossed one in her grave, you know, because otherwise it's like, why does he give her 2 coins? And like, you know, that might be kind of a thing, like a nice little way to wrap it up, the story between them, to kind of have him finally give her the coin in the end or something. Yeah, that's all the little things I wrote down. But yeah, all in all, I really enjoyed it, even though I was confused.
Okay, thank you, Cheddar. I was just thinking, you know, yesterday was 420. Maybe we should have done this script yesterday, and a couple of our readers might have understood it a bit better. Moving on now to Vembre. What were your thoughts on the script?
So this script was very interesting for me because fairy tales are my shit, and noir is also very much my shit. So this script was very much my shit. And why is it whenever I get a lead role, it's always a super deep, grovelly voice? Like that is 3 for 3 for me reading lead male actors for these table reads. What the heck? But to talk about the script itself, I regularly found myself questioning sort of exactly how the setting worked. Like, I mean, I understood the basic concept, but again, and it was elaborated on exactly what is up with the dreamers, you know, who are dreamers? Why do they appear here? I feel like the very specifics of what happened to the dreamers that we thought was them going home or them leaving, and it was actually something very different. It felt very ambiguous. Like, I feel like, considering it was a noir story and you have, you know, young women who are, you know, disappear and never be seen again, you know, there's sort of an obvious, you know, an obvious idea of what that might imply. But then you have the whole maze of mirrors thing, and that just sort of veers it off into an entirely different direction, and it left me kind of wondering exactly what was the intended assumption there. I thought one thing I thought was a really cute touch was naming the other dreamer Tiger Lily. I assume that is a reference to the character from the original Peter Pan story, because I thought that was cute personally, sort of hearkening to another another story from a similar era. But one thing that I think that I can actually like give a recommendation on is sort of make it clear from earlier on that Rabbit sort of has knows more about the situation than is immediately apparent. Like, it kind of seems like Rabbit really has no idea what's going on at first, and then you find out that he's been studying all the mysterious deaths of all these dreamers for quite a long time, and maybe he knows more than he's let on, but that's not really communicated well, until that plot thread is exposed when Hatter is checking out his living space. It's kind of odd that way. I feel like there's a lot of really amazing ideas in this script. And I love the noir setting. I love the interpretation of Wonderland. It just feels like to me that maybe you need a little bit more sorting out what is really happening, like how exactly the world works when the viewer / the script / the authors, whatever, when our eyes are not looking at this world, how it operates. And I feel like a lot of my questions about the script sort of stemmed from that. My other point, and it's in a very similar vein, is sort of how this connects to the original story. Now, granted, I could be entirely wrong and make an entire massive butt about myself right about now, but even though it's been a long time since I've read the original story, it feels like during the flashback sequences where we have Rabbit who first meets Alice, like, I feel like, and again, I could be entirely wrong here, it kind of feels like you sort of expect the viewer to sort of know the basics of the original story. And then obviously the entire point is that, our expectations and our understanding of those are completely shattered. And it feels like during those flashback sequences that our understanding of the events of the original story in this setting, at least, are wrong from the get-go. Because even back then, the White Rabbit was a member of the police who was trying to help out the young Alice who was lost. And then, works very differently from the original story. And so it feels kind of strange setting up this entire thing around betraying the viewer's expectations based around how they understand the original story, especially if their only point of reference is the animated Disney film. And then you kind of change an interpretation of the base story anyway. And then it kind of felt to me like, oh, well, I guess I should just sort of leave my expectations of how this works at the door, because it's sort of made clear that we're just following entirely on our own rules, and the viewer's understanding of how it worked from other pieces of media don't really apply. And I don't know if that was your intention or not to do that, but considering both in the character description list and in the script itself, when it refers to Alice, it specifically refers to exactly as you remember her from the original story. Like, I believe you say that word for word. And so that sort of set up expectations for me that the rest of the events of the original story were as I remember them. and then you would shatter those expectations, and you would take it in a wildly different direction based on this noir setting that you have going for it. And it just didn't really pan out that way, and it kind of threw me for a loop, and not in necessarily the way that I feel you intended. I think the script itself is really well written. I love how at the very end of the script you sort of loop back to the very beginning of the script with hey, you can't smoke here. And Rabbit's entirely different reaction is just sort of a show of character development. And I really like that. I just think that there just needs a more clear just outline of exactly what your setting is and how it works, and how your setting is supposed to resonate and make the audience react beyond just, this is a bunch of names that you're familiar with, but now they adhere more to noir stereotypes as opposed to what you remember them being. And I feel like if you could really just nail that down and really bring those two elements together, the grittier noir setting with the original story, and really tie those elements together better, I think this could be like a huge winner. And that's about it for me.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ben. And last but not least, our narrator, Alex. What were your thoughts on the script?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so I didn't get a lot of feedback written down because when I wasn't talking, I was either feverishly drinking water or feverishly writing down strange things I'm trying to decrypt at the moment. Like little notes. However, there's one or two things I think I'll probably pick up and remember as I just go through about these. Looks like 5 points here. First of all, I am not 100% sure about this, but I do not think how you use continuous in your slug lines is how you're meant to use continuous. The way I would use continuous is when one scene directly bleeds into the other, as in, say, characters move from an exterior to an interior and the camera moves with them. I think there's 1 or 2 instances when you do that, but there are many, many more when that isn't the case at all. I don't have the raw numbers. I'm just assuming that the vast majority of your slug lines have continuous in them. I'm just reading some of his comments here. Yeah, I mean, I would read up a bit on that because I'm not entirely confident on it either. I only use it when I specifically I'm trying to imply to whoever's reading that, hey, this is all meant to be in one shot. And I'm pretty sure if with that mentality, it doesn't work in this script, which is it threw me for a little bit. But I mean, we're talking minor stuff here. All right, second point. Yeah, this won't be in any great details. Mostly just scattered thoughts. Second point was a biggie, actually. Tiger Lily kind of felt like the main character who was introduced at page 60. And that well, I wouldn't say confused me, but it certainly caught me off guard, especially because, actually, I'll tie this into another point, especially around page 87, approximately, I'd say about film time, but 25 minutes after she's introduced, she's the one giving the kind of moral / and/or thematic, what's the word I'm looking for here, reasoning or resolution to Rabbit. It feels weird that she was introduced so late and became such a significant character out of, well, as far as I can tell, relatively nothing. She escaped and then just shows up at page 60, and I don't know. I'm sure you have reasons why that may be the case. My only suggestion would be, and I realize this may not be particularly compatible with what you have, introduce her earlier, give us time to, for lack of a better word, care about her. Because this ties into my other point where I understood what you're doing around page 86, 87, where Rabbit and Tiger Lily were in that corridor tunnel thing and they're having this resonant conversation about running away from things. I understood what you're doing, and this bothered me specifically because it's something I do constantly, which is on the nose dialogue. I don't have much to say here because I mean I'm not great at either. Only apart from one just top tip, pretty much on the nose dialogue happens when the subtext of what the characters are saying becomes what they're actually saying, becomes the text. And that happens. I mean, we're talking noir, so I'm willing to kind of let it slide, especially for the voiceover, because that's kind of the genre we're dealing in here. But just for really, PH 86, 87 really took it out of me, and I think it's because, again, it's something I've written a scene quite similar to that, where two characters are in a tunnel running away from something, and that's where they have their big thematic revelation and or discussion. Just something to bear in mind. Let's see. What's my other? Okay, two smaller points. One, Rabbit seems to be a very emotional character. I wonder. I don't know if this is true, but I wonder if his emotions may be more resonant to a viewer if he suppresses them until later on in the script, maybe especially after Alice dies. Like I'm thinking specifically when he is with Charles and they're both crying when they're talking about Alice and they see the photo. Kind of felt a little bit overwrought to me. I remember hearing a screenwriting guy told me that it's always better if a character can't articulate their flaw, and emotionally articulating is just one way of that. And I don't know, it felt overwrought to me. I'm willing to defer to others in that one in specific. And the final thing, it kind of delves into what Ven was saying there about what your world is. Specifically, though, I was trying to get a picture of what Wonderland was like in my head, because I really struggled with the geography. I started out with some sort of blend of a Sin City and traditional Wonderland, where things were a little bit crazy and everything was upside down, topsy turvy. Then, as the script went on, I just kind of started delving into maybe this is just like Manhattan with Alice in Wonderland characters, and maybe that's what you're going for. If it is, I would try and make that clear pretty early on, in case you get pricks like me who can't get a visual image in their head without being explicitly told what that visual image is. With the exception of that, that's the only feverish points that I managed to scroll down, and I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. But apart from that, thank you for letting me read your script, and I had fun.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alex. This has happened before. I've had some requests come in from several anonymous female viewers for Alex to repeat a couple of things that he said during the script. See, he already knows it's coming because this has happened before. Alex, would you mind just if I say something, you say it back to me?
I would be my pleasure.
Okay, the first one is beckoning Rabbit to come to her.
No, jeez.
I feel like I'm being recorded for a soundboard. Beckoning Rabbit to come to her.
Very good. Nice. Thank you. The next one is covered in blood.
Covered in blood.
Flip.
Flip.
Good Lord.
Good Lord. Good. Good Lord.
Faces.
Faces. Oh no, faces.
Yes. Escaped.
Faces. Escaped.
Flip.
Flip.
Now.
Oh, this is the bad one for my accent, I have to admit. Now.
And the last one is yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the best. That's the best I can do.
That's great. Okay, thank you so much for humoring me, Alex, and being a good sport. Thank you, Ted, for submitting your script. If anyone is listening and wants to submit a script, my contact form is down on the website right now, actually. So just send me an email to twitchfilmdiscord@gmail.com. Send me the character list and the script that it tells you how to make at twitchtablereads.com. And I'll make sure that you get into the queue. Thank you so much to my table readers. You guys did a great job. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back next Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my god, the last word.